Oh, hello, and welcome to Adente Rigamortis. I'm Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey. The U stands for evil.
The gamer in yellow.
And we're here to discuss those internet stories, most creepy and most pasta, and be critically silly doing it. And tonight we have, on Halloween night, the last day of October, Short Hoggers, chapters 6 through 9.
Nice.
So I just felt like I should add a little bit of flair since it's our holiday.
Yeah, I suppose. I was going to ask where the extra bravado came from.
Yeah. Last day of October, we are finishing up the series with these final chapters. Last day of October and all the other and all the stories affiliated with it are by Pratt 99. You can check it out at Creepypasta Wiki along with all her other stories. And let's do our initial recommendation before we dive into this as we finish off this series and this story in particular. I'm going to partially recommend it, but it teeters on a non-recommendation.
I am also going to partially recommend it.
I guess I will also say partial, because that's what I wrote down.
Really?
Yeah.
Wow, okay. Well, let's find out why we gave it such middling recommendations. Starting with the rundown, which I have abbreviated. So we continue on with the final 4 chapters of Short Hoggers. Kess is awakened from her flashback slumber in her flashback to a tapping and then knocking on her cottage door, similar to the end of the Ellie Lambert story. What differs is as she realizes something is terribly wrong and prepares to fight back with an advanced but prohibited Safrasian rifle, she and her cat, Miss Tabitha, are transitionally teleported to a different time and place. A few centuries in the past and roughly 5,500 miles away from Swanwick in an inn run by a pirate captain in Port Bognar on a completely different continent. The captain, Jarvis Sievers, and his first mate explain that some ghost things sent her here, and after Kess explains what she was in the middle of, they seem to have an idea of what it is, and tells Kess yet another story of what this thing might be called, or what it is known to these people. And telling the story of Captain Jarvis's father, Victor, who was courting a woman in his youth who was likely responsible for this thing's inception. Maybe. You see, Victor was courting
the layers and layers.
Yeah. Hey, hang on. Speaking of layers.
Okay.
You see, Victor was courting a Clarissa Von Davero. You know, the same Clarissa Van Davero, possibly, that Kess read about in that newspaper article, who was getting sentenced to a mortal lifespan on Midgard in one of her flashbacks. And this Clarissa was rather nasty, as it turned out. He ended up breaking off the courting when she confessed to luring an ugly servant girl from Hualau Earth in the family estate, which is known as the Bisharn Manor, to a strange set of doors up in the attic of the manor. It's here that the girl was likely killed by some horror beyond the doors and stairs, and it also likely escaped from whatever horrible dark place beyond it came from. This ugly servant, Anne Milton, also had the same frog-like disfigurement that Ellie Lambert took on at the welcome party Kess had attended earlier, though the Van Devereaux had put a glamour spell on her while she was working for them to make her less ugly. And in fact, she could even appear as Clarissa, which was probably why Clarissa hated her so. After leaving that situation, Victor began having dreams on the 1-year anniversary of Anne Milton's disappearance, where he was passing through a strange liminal space known as the Lost Rooms, which were mystically tied to a tragedy that occurred in Bisharn Manor, where a bunch of the original rooms of the estate simply vanished from the local reality. Like apparently the manor had like something like 1,000 rooms, and then like 700 and some odd rooms just vanished from existence in the manor, and now end up in this weird liminal haunted space known as the Lost Rooms. In this place of ghostly manor halls and rooms, he found a locked up set of doors with warnings on them, but also heard voices asking to be let out. At first, he was going to help, but thanks to a certain magic green disc-like object, kind of like a monocle, he saw the true nature of the voices beyond and fled, though not before stumbling upon the corpse husk of what he suspected was Anne Milton. Seems the good captain would later have to deal with this horror as well, though they supposedly got a shaman from Midgard to vanquish it eventually. And now it seems to be after Kess back in Swanwick. However, to get back, Kess must deal with the same ghost things that pulled her away and dwell in the Lost Rooms, known as the Threshold Guardians. But just as Kess is going to deal with these things and get back to Swanwick to finish the fight, Finn? Yeah, that's the story just kind of ends.
Yeah, a little bit.
Before we get the end. So
Stop support ends.
Yeah. But that is the rundown for the last day of October short Hoggers chapters 6 through 9. And without further ado, let's kick it off with Valorous the Grammar Inquisitions. At this point, I started off strong, and then I got nothing for like the last 2 chapters. just FYI. So
Same as me.
Yeah. So chapter 6, we got this one here. The night was disagreeably cold, unaccountable so for the middle of summer. So I feel like it should be unaccountably so for the middle of summer.
Yep.
Mikey, do you have anything for chapter 6?
Or the other way is you could say unaccountable for the middle of summer as well.
Yeah.
It's the so that makes it need to be unaccountably.
Yeah, but I mean, I like the unaccountably so for the middle of summer. Like that, I do like how that's written. It's just it needs to be accountably.
Sure. I'm just saying the other option is it also to me sounds fine to say unaccountable for the middle of summer.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. Mikey, do you have anything for chapter 6?
Nope.
Gamer, do you have anything else for chapter 6?
Yeah.
Okay.
Hang on, let me read this real quick.
Also, I like how I bob my head in one direction when I address Mikey, and then I bob my head to the other side of like you guys are in the same room as me.
Because we're sitting on the couch together. That's
yeah,
what
exactly.
this is.
Yeah, totally. We're on a virtual couch.
Yeah, totally.
If I did title cards again, I'd know what I'd be doing. Just like a digital couch, just all pixelated.
So this is kind of like a transition kind of grammar thing. So Kess goes from like getting her railgun, and then it explains like the railgun, what it is, and its legality.
Yeah.
Then it suddenly cuts to a flashback of how she got it, but without explaining that was really happening.
Yeah, I left that I actually had that in my actual thoughts, but I was at first it was going to go in my grammar inquisition, but yeah, I'm glad you brought this up too. Yeah,
because like I expected it to cut back to real time, like as soon as she grabbed it, but then like it goes on to a talk of glass displays plundered and such, and then like cutting to Kess describing turning left and going down a corridor. Like
and there's a sign that's faded that says prohibited techno-hands weapons. I was like, oh,
yeah.
she's in the museum that she stole. Why is there no like transition to this?
Yeah,
yeah. Because at first I thought like, is she just like is she like walking through her cottage in Swanwick? Does it also have like is it bigger on the inside than on the outside? The thing
could be. Yeah.
Everything is liminal spaces now. Like there's just.
Yeah, a little transition between like being told the history and like going into the flashback would be nice, because like technically the transition here is when it says many of the glass display cases were broken, but that didn't really do it for me.
Yeah.
Personally, I feel something like it was in one of those museums that Kess got hers, like got her rifle or something like that, because that's like a cleaner transition between just facts of the history of the weapon and then how she got it.
Alternatively, it could even like so between like the thing we get at the top where like it's talking about the weapon and like the Control Act of 3755, and then it goes on and it's like Kess thought back on when she first got when she first treaded through that museum or something like that, and then we cut to this.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like that would definitely be something. Like again, it just needs like a few extra words just to like help transition between like to let the reader know a little bit more solidly. Yes, we are in a flashback, rather than just like have us find that out like a paragraph later after being confused.
It removes the whiplash.
Yeah.
But my next one is in the flashback of how she got it. It says Miss Tabitha had watched its removal from the museum. This is the gun from the museum case with alarm, convinced the mysterious weapon was cursed and that it would turn on its discoverer. So when I first read that, I thought it was meaning that Kess removed the rifle from the case, which set off the alarm.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not even joking. I thought that's what that meant. But no, Miss Tabitha the cat was watching, like, with shock that she did that, basically. Which would have been a better word for that, because alarm has multiple uses in this, because English is annoying.
Every language has this kind of, it's not just English.
Because it's entirely plausible that the museum case had an alarm on it. So removing the gun from the museum case with alarm almost sounds like it's referring to the museum case having an alarm on it, you know?
Yeah, and not with like, with shock, with like, oh god, like what are you doing?
I mean, I got it immediately after I thought about it for half a second, but yeah,
could be written a little bit more like clarity, with a little bit more like clarity to it.
Yeah, and then this is when they're when Kess gets into the pirate room, basically talking to people. And the line is, "Yeah." Kess gave the pirate wrench a baffled glance before continuing. Shouldn't it be wench, not wrench?
Yeah.
Unless there's a talking wrench here, which I wouldn't put it past this.
There is so much weird, like quirky, whimsical shit that, like, a redheaded bar wrench would not have surprised me.
It wouldn't have, no.
Just like a large human-sized wrench just turns around in a body outfit and red locks and just like, it's like, what will that be? It's like, sure, why not? Yeah.
Would it be like one of those like adjustable wrenches? So like every time the mouth moves, like the corkscrews quickly moving up and down as the mouth? Or
it'd be like kind of like elastic, have an elasticity to it, like a cartoon. So like if it's just like it's just like a normal, like an old fashioned like blacksmith one, like the little like the mouth, like the wide mouth part would still be like gabbing, but like it would be like uncharacteristically like rubbery the way it flaps around. Yeah,
for sure.
Love that it's just amazing. We're just in a cartoon.
I mean, sometimes, it feels like it sometimes.
Yep. But back to your original thing. Yeah, I think it's supposed to be a wench.
Yes, because she's referred to as a wench later, and also a witch. I think if it's the same person.
Yeah.
Which might also
be. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, because she does have like, I think it does describe her as having like kind of witchy features. So
yeah, so she's a witch wench.
Yeah.
But she's not a witch wench wrench.
She's a witch. She's a witch wench with
wrench.
A wrench.
Yes.
With a wrench wand.
Makes sense to me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it for my grammar on that chapter.
Okay. On to chapter 7 then. I'm gonna go with this one here. To avoid detection by either the housekeeper or butler, they decided to use the back stairs. Not to be confused with the back rooms. Sorry.
Just the way you said it really did sound like that.
Yeah, they decided to use the back stairs. Clarissa leading the way with Anne, nervously alert for the dreaded jingling of the housekeeper's keys. slowly following along like a frightened mouse. So following there is missing an I, so it's just like following. Yeah, it's a symbol typo. But yeah. And that's all I got for chapter 7. So, Mikey?
I'm good.
Gamer.
Okay. This one, it must have been some scarifying things that go bump in the night name in regards to like her questioning what her actual name is, the waif. It kind of sounds odd to me saying it like that. Like, yeah, this is dialogue, but wouldn't she simply say like some scary things that go bump in the night name, not scarifying? Like,
Yeah,
is that a thing?
No, I don't. I don't think it's a proper use of the word. I don't think scarifying
It's
is
terrifying and scary at the same time.
Yeah, but I honestly like terrifying. Oh my god, scarifying is actually a word.
Is it? I've never heard that.
Scarifying, adjective. It's informal, but it's basically an informal version of frightening. A scarifying mix of extreme violence and absurdist humor.
Wow, we learned a thing.
I did not think that was a word. But I guess because like it's like terrifying, scarifying, frightening. Like they're all horrifying. Like they're all, yeah. It's like, but like to me, like scarifying is like on the low end of that spectrum of like words to use.
Still works though, apparently.
Apparently, yeah.
But when I first read this though, I thought it was saying like she must have some scarifying things, comma, because like
yeah. Sorry.
Yeah.
No, go on.
No, it's all right.
Oh, fine. Okay. I was just saying, does that mean that like there's a startifying or startlifying? Because it's like going down like a spectrum of like terrifying, horrifying, frightening, scarifying, startlifying. Because you're so startled.
It's like the episode of South Park.
Yeah.
With the what were they, giant guinea pigs?
Yeah, I think so.
We're getting off the rails a bit. I'll move on.
Yes.
Lining the walls were priceless paintings and statues of various gods and mystical creatures. Every niche and cranny was filled. I assume this is meant to be every nook and cranny?
Yeah, I stumbled on that myself, but I kind of just went over it. But yeah, now that you point that out again, like, yeah, no, I thought there was something off about that, but I let it go. Yeah.
Also, as far as my Google says, cranny is just Y on the end, not IE.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, it might just be like a misspelling.
It could be.
Yeah.
Also, niche and cranny might be a regional dialect for all I know, but I don't know.
Yeah, because like
I've only heard it one way.
Kind of, well, to be fair, like niche and nook are kind of a similar word, but yeah. So it might be just like a dialect thing.
I thought a niche is like a type of thing.
So a niche is like kind of what our show is, like where we tap into a niche topic.
Yeah, but we don't have a nitpick niche.
Though God, I wish I could really go for some quiche in my nitpick niche.
No. Instead, you just sit there and cook in your nitpick nook.
Yes. Let him cook.
But I'll move on.
Wow. We are like really like whimsically like rhyming today and shit.
I wonder why.
Yeah.
I wonder why. But yes, I'll move on.
Okay.
But even several 100,000 pounds, hush doubloons and threats, exile ain't gonna keep them folks from nattering, or keep hidden a dark and dreadful secret such as Thwaif. Thwaif, I guess is how that would be said. Regardless, I mentioned this last time, but so it's the same sort of grammar thing as I did in the previous recording. But ORE sounds exactly the same as OR.
Yeah, but like also in when you're writing that stuff down, like even in like Old English, sometimes I've seen that actually written like that. Like,
okay, but is every single instance of OR spelt ORE through this entire story?
I don't know.
I highly doubt it.
Yeah, it might also be just an error because like they were already like going through like a huge long thing of like Old English dialogue. So
I guess it just kind of sounds like it was written that way to try to do an accent, but it sounds the same either way, so I don't know what that sound should have been.
Yeah.
Okay, and my last one for this chapter. What Clarissa Van Devereaux did was far more worse than mere burglary. And just like a previous recording, I think I also brought this sort of thing up before too. Far worse would be better, not far more worse, because it's doubling down. But again, it's also all this
better.
It's also dialogue.
all this is dialogue though. So like,
the way
can
the pirates talk.
I mean, yeah, like technically yes, but to
They're
that,
more like
that
guidelines than actual rules.
yeah, but to that rule, we should not do any grammar for any of these at all, because all of these stories are 90% dialogue.
And 90%, yeah, like the character's either like telling this in a flashback or it's in a journal. So like,
Yeah, so
my immersion.
we're damned if we do, we're damned if we don't.
Yeah, exactly.
But that's it for that chapter.
All right. Chapter 8, I have nothing, as I said earlier. So, Mikey, do you have anything?
Nope.
Yeah,
Damn
you
it.
guys are slipping.
Or we just don't, didn't see much of a problem.
I guess.
So much Teponese going on.
Yeah.
Apparently. It was suddenly all very quiet except for the soft sobbing beyond the door. Victor felt his eyes filled with tears.
My
Should it
face
be
is tired.
Yeah, shouldn't it be like felt his eyes fill with tears?
Yeah.
And like I know the story's being told from the past, so filled is the past tense of fill, but it doesn't sound right.
Wait, hang on. So felt his except
Felt his
for,
eyes filled with
because he
tears.
felt. There's the past tense in that's necessary in that sentence.
Ah, yes. So that
'Cause it's,
immediately
felt
puts
his-
everything into the past.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Tensman.
Welcome to my tense talk.
Yeah. But that's it for chapter 8.
Okay. I've got nothing on chapter 9. So, Mikey.
I got nothing.
Ah, you guys. I got one at least. You just tell those go-seers to bring back another working porter, and while they're at it, drop kick that waif demon into whatever hallow pit she crawled out of. So
Yeah.
what?
You're gonna talk about Porter versus Portal.
Yeah.
I honestly saw that and I was like, I mean, Porter as a word could honestly work. Again, based off of a regional dialect thing, although it does scream like that it's a typo for portal.
Yeah, I would think so.
Because the word porter,
it's like a dude that carries luggage. That's what a porter is.
Actually, so yeah, that's the first one. Actually, the next thing is dark brown bitter beer brewed.
It's neither of those things, though.
Hang on, more definitions.
Would you like to know more?
No, you're right. Yeah, no, it does. Porter comes from the Latin portere, which means carry, and then Middle English porter.
I mean, she's being carried from one room to another.
so well, no, she's being carried away back to her home world. So send a porter. But yeah, honestly, it's probably Portal.
Yeah, probably.
Just being really pedantic here.
But that's all I got for 9.
Okay. Well, Mikey, do we have a conjunction junction? Okay.
Yes, we do.
All right. And next stop, conjunction junction. Doot, doot.
Chapter 6. It was close to midnight when Kess awoke. It had to have been an animal then, maybe even a bat or an owl brushing up against the glass. It's like Fimbulwinter in here. It's me. It's cold. It's late. It's 12 a.m. But while the blades put on the display were just inert metal, the ones dug deep around the door were of a completely different nature. It was a Saphrazian-made rifle, a room-temperature superconducting Langston railgun with a telescopic scope and a carbon fiber barrel, to be exact. But the gun, it seemed, was content to be resurrected and put to good use once again. It was a multilingual booklet with clear page protectors. The pages were a little faded, but still quite legible, and included her native language. But even this indomitable warrior girl, armed with formidable hardware, was now quaking at the prospect at facing the thing standing outside. But no sooner did that unpleasant thought enter her mind than she quickly shut it out. It was just like an Errol Flynn movie, only much worse due to the soupy miasma of odors assaulting her senses and numerous diabolical eyes staring at her with fixed intent. It would probably eat up all the animals first before it gets on to wrecking the furniture. It didn't sound like a voice you'd expect a seafaring man to have, more like that of a country vicar or a barrister. And just when I was going to do something very important. And what would that be? It came at midnight to my place. I thought it was someone from town at first, then my cat started hissing. It's a her? It might save your life one day. Chapter 7. So, what would you call this thing exactly? It. And it's antique, she added as the second beast went to open the door. So treat it with great respect. But he shouldn't do that. And where is here then? It was carrying a cargo of spices, liquor, and art objects bound for Europe, and had stopped for supplies in the port of Libertalia. And the rest of the crew? It looked so out of place among the treasure trove of trinkets and trophied mementos. It looked very old. Its previous owners must have been doing some tailoring on it, since there were a lot of silver pins sticking out of the front. It's part of a family fortune taken from the eastern Nigh Alps, the kingdom of Valerian to be exact. Or maybe even burglars. But that secret cabin soon proved to be a tome that concealed something far worse than any black-spotted mummified pharaoh. And why is that? But even several £100,000 o' hush doubloons in threats o' exile ain't goin' to keep some folks from nattering. But just who is this waif? So he probably knew the Van Devereaux. So when did this particular Stilton thing happen? It was at the Van Devereaux' annual All Hallows Eve celebration, and as usual, Victor was quietly fuming as he watched Arthur and Clarissa dance merrily in the Earl's Grand Hall. But that was impossible, for he had just seen Clarissa in the Grand Hall, and as flighty as she was, it wasn't like her at all to suddenly run off right in the middle of an important dance with her parents and neighbors watching. But was it really her? It was supposed to be a replica of a similar dress that had been worn by one of the former inhabitants of the estate, a Cinderella-type ancestor who married some of the Duke's sons and moved overseas to Wallachia. But It wasn't the eye itself that made Victor's blood run cold, but what he saw when he looked back at Clarissa again. It resembled something you would see in a freak show or a marionette puppet theater. A human-sized doll with a bloated, cupid face with a wide frog-like grin. So numbed with icy horror was he that he couldn't utter a sound, let alone twitch a muscle. So this wife was a shapeshifter then? But what she lacked in natural magic and letter smarts, she made up for in hypnotic deceit and cunning, and by sheer stubborn will alone, was able to manipulate the glamour spell that had been imposed upon her. But she wasn't cunning enough, Martina chimed in, for she was caught when she blundered into a servant coming through aft entrance. And shortly after that, she wasn't seen again, said Captain Jarvis with a shrug. Not in the village, nor in the halls of Bizharn Manor. Or maybe she caught Anne trying on one of her dresses, suggested another, and couldn't even stomach the thought of a scullery maid looking handsomer in it than herself. And just for that, she was fired and sent back to the mortal realm. But didn't she come from Holau Earth? And what did young Victor think? And as the weeks came and went, and no word was heard of Anne, things eventually got back to normal. But what made him change his mind about Clarissa? But she knew people like Anne were protected not only by rules of hospitality, which granted charity to any stranger, no matter how lowly in rank, but also by the gods who protected both children and people of low intellect. But a few were utterly true, and one such tale stood out in its strangeness and macabreness. It concerns a secret attic room somewhere in the southeast corner of the manor. And this was the very same room those workmen discovered years later. It's like what happened to me when I was living in Saphrasia, she angrily muttered. But did this spoiled brat ever take a life? So what does this monstrous girl do next? But most the people here in Bizarne completely ignored her, just like the people back in her universe, including her very own family, who focused all their attention on her more gifted, better-looking siblings. But Anne reassured her she was much better now, and could make the journey to the attic space. And when the stone door swung inward again, and when Anne, shaking with fright and holding the flickering paper lantern high, crept into the dust-filled space and up the stairs, Clarissa waited. It was all quiet and dark as a grave up in the small corner of the house. It was the practice of the village elders to keep a close watch on the younger members of the community, especially any courting couples. But unlike Arthur, whose head was full of pompous, self-absorbed daydreams and esoteric lore, Victor was a down-to-earth realist who wasn't blinded by lust nor greedy ambition. So it must have come to a total shock to my father when the object of his passion suddenly confessed to a heinous crime. But why keep silent? It was as though Anne Milton had never existed, as though an iron door had slammed shut on the memory in Victor's mind. And then, on the first anniversary of Anne's disappearance, the nightmares began. Chapter 8. Because a ghost is still a person, even though it is dead and without a body. It still possesses human thought and emotion. It's a well-known Valerian legend. It also brought about a curse that corrupted their bloodline, leading to various kinds of physical and mental aberrations. It might also just be because she was the youngest of three sisters in the spoiled, rotten apple. Oh, the lot, Martina broke in. But Victor would only learn about those defections years later. It would be impossible to describe every door and room he passed through in such a short time, but he had little fear in the beginning. And why was that? Because there was life within those rooms, he replied. It was also surrounded by a circle of salt and quicklime. And did he ever open that door? It was a plague door, marked with an ominous red X with an inscription scrawled across it, "Do not enter." It wasn't until the third night of his discovery that they finally made their appearance known. It can only be opened by someone with magic. It can't be opened by an ordinary human. But we're not monsters and inborn killers. It was suddenly all very quiet except for the soft sobbing beyond the door. It somehow felt wrong to demolish an old magical relic built by an ancient people. It appeared to be a folding knife of some kind, but no amount of flicking or prying could induce a blade to appear. But I might have a whetstone with me. It didn't sound like a little girl now, nor anything with a human-shaped mouth, or throat, or lungs. Chapter 9. It was only afterwards that he became really afraid, because he found the knife and the grab marks on his ankle the next morning. It was like a log or a stack of grain sacks was wedged up tight against the bottom. But it's like it may enter some form of afterlife or pass into the next reincarnation. But there is still remnants left of the deceased in the fresh blood, in the brain tissue memories, fears, and desires. Its nature is ambiguous and unpredictable as a wild beast. It was a foul deed what she did that November night, and on what would have been an auspicious time of the year. Or else the varmint gained access to a less secured gate, Martina interjected. But were they really human bones? And were they that of a young girl? Or else it could have sprouted legs and crawled off, Kess remarked, remembering the scene with Norris's head in the thing. But at the time, we didn't stand around asking such questions. And his will proved strong enough to drive the waif far from the streets of Port Bognar, and forced her down into the first place she ever haunted. But it didn't affect your father when he went through the lost rooms. And if I'm unlucky, Finn.
What? Oh, you're done?
Wow.
Sorry. Dozed off there, I think. Thank you
That
for
is story
the
left. Sorry, go ahead.
thank you for that very long synopsis of the story.
Yeah, there was a lot of words that sentences that start with words that they probably shouldn't, like its, ends, or buts, because there's always better words to use, except when it's dialogue and it doesn't matter.
Also, I
Yep.
would contend a couple of those, the ones that started with "so," did not need to be in your conjunction junction. But sure,
Front sewer?
front so's. Yeah, she did a couple of he did a couple of front so's.
No,
Yep.
you're okay with front sews?
I'm for some front so's.
You're pro front sew?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, what of it?
Yeah. Want a foot about it? Come at me, bro.
So
Come
what
at
are you
me.
gonna do? As I started.
Yeah.
That's fine.
Okay. Well, with that out of the way, I suppose we'll move on to actual thoughts. So before we even get headed into any of the chapters, let's go with the images. Again, they're not. There's only like really, I think, one that is like an actual illustration by M. Pratt. That being of the Sphinx creatures, which is a really interesting like kind of collage design that she went with, because it's kind of like a mix of like photo cutouts and some like illustrations around it.
Yeah, like the faces are like photoshopped onto them, basically.
Yeah. But other than that, like all the other ones are like all the other images in the story are photos that generally like I think complement or like in even like a small way the writing that's going on as it goes. Like the little like cheese dish. There's ones of when she ends up in that tavern, there's like a pirate or like a skull on like what looks like a bar like a bar counter. Stuff like that. Like it's just kind of like just sort of like complementary photos to like help the visualization of what's going on.
There's an image of the railgun taken directly from Halo.
Yeah, there is that. Yep. Yep. Yeah, it's straight up a what is that? Is that a
light rifle.
Oh yeah, is that like the Promethean weapon or is that
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
Yeah, from like Halo 4, Halo 5.
I forget which one, but it's one of them.
Yeah.
They blend together. But it's very serviceable for what it's described the weapon to be, so that's fine.
Yeah, and then even later on, we get like some images of like the hallways and like the like a decrepit like rooms and stuff like that help visualize like the lost rooms and such. So, yeah, no, like that's basically all I got for the images. It's just like they're serviceable. There's no like they're photographs that were taken that were used that were like sourced from other places, like not made by M. Pratt. So I can't really like go into the critique of that kind of stuff. So.
Yeah, just basically their accuracy in regards to what's going on and stuff like that.
Yeah. But I guess I'll move on to chapter 6, Night Visitors. I'm going to start with this quote here. Her spine tingled as her hair rose on end. Instinctively, she took several steps back. And as she did, she heard a voice call out from the other side of the door. "It's me, Vanessa. Let me in. It's cold." Vanessa? Despite the cold, Kess started walking toward the door. "What are you doing? It's late." So I think we covered this a little bit about not answering the door or not answering voices at your door at night, even if you recognize them in our Ellie Lambert story or Ellie Lambert episode. But like, and how that whole like this whole like part kind of brought to mind like the current sort of like trending material that's out there online of like Appalachia horror and like how you there's just like this kind of unspoken thing that is now spoken about online of like, yeah, you at night you lock your doors, you don't go near the windows. If you hear somebody's voice that's outside that sounds like familiar to you calling you to go outside, you don't answer it because it's something from beyond the woods. So I just like this kind of sort of similarity of like the situation that's happening and like how it's kind of played out even in like the earlier part of the story, or even like the previous story where like Madame Mosley was saying like you don't open the doors for anything that like after midnight. Because it's all like how we're finally getting that kind of play out of like what Madame Mosley like warned her about in the previous story, and now we got like it all comes together here. And here also after reading the previous story, I already fucking mentioned that. Okay, never mind.
Language.
Yeah. And then my next thing I have here is actually regarding the rifle bit. In an effort to secure universal peace, the Langston rifle, along with the other techno-hanced weaponry, were banned from the mortal and free folk territories. The few remaining weapons that had escaped dismantlement under the Techno-Hance Weaponry Control Act of 3755 were largely consigned to museums and subterranean vaults guarded by djinn and dragons. God, this line is so Shadowrun.
I realize it's 3755 as well.
Yeah, the year 3755. Oh yeah, like this is very Shadowrun. It could also be because I've been listening to a game, an actual play of Rifts. This kind of feels a very Rifts like as well. But yeah, like just like again one of those like science fantasy like kitchen sink kind of settings. And it's just so interesting, just like this high technology from like future times. Because again, you gotta think like we're thinking also like I thought it was also strange that so this is 3755, but like we know that this story in particular takes place in 2012. I think that actually has to do with like again the different parallel universes and stuff. Like some realities are farther along a timeline than ours.
Okay, yeah.
So like perhaps the Gurdon civilization, because the Gurdon like this is all like I think this is Gurdon tech. Or at least
it says it's a Savrasian made rifle.
But it's of
later
her
it says
people.
Gurdon.
Because it's of her people. So I think Gurdons come from Saphrasia or came from Saphrasia.
Then yeah, I guess so.
Yeah. Again, we're learning more about about Gurdons in the story as well. Like as I find later in the story. But yeah, just like these techno-hance weapons that weren't dismantled are like kept in museums and subterranean vaults, guarded by mystical and mythological like monsters. Like just like God, that's so Shadowrun. Like
it really is.
Yeah. And then the next thing I have here, Miss Tabitha's unhappy muse confirmed what she already feared. There is no escape out of this madness. Not only did she blunder straight into an earlier time period, it happened to be one of the more archaic periods. So apparently time anomalies are not out of the realm of weirdness. Wait, were the pirate swords and grappling ropes on the doors an earlier sign of this alteration happening? Because like originally when I had read like an Ellie Lambert, and then because I think me and Mikey had talked about this on the Ellie Lambert episode, like the cutlasses like embedded in the door, and then like the grappled ropes on the other door. I thought it was I perceived it to be like some kind of like perhaps some kind of like security system for the cottage had. Like they just magically like embed to keep things out and such. Because initially, even when reading this story, I thought like, are these cutlasses like poking out from like from the gaps on the other side of the door? Like, is this like the creature on the other side like stabbing through? But then you find out no, it's on the inside, and they're embedding and keeping things in place.
Yeah.
But now it has me wondering. It's like, are these since there's this pirate motif in the time period that Kess ends up in after this happens? Like, were those like sort of a like she was seeing that and wasn't sure what they were, what that was all about? Was that like sort of like a sort of a like a sort of preceding the her being displaced to the appropriate timeline, or
it's like that other timeline grabbing onto her timeline and like pulling her through, basically.
Yeah, kind of like that. Yeah.
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 So it just had me wondering about that. And again, I shouldn't be surprised. Like it's like time anomalies. Sure, why not?
It's possible that the timeline that you got pulled into, they have like active wards or whatever to like detect when other people are being attacked by the wave.
maybe,
So
yeah.
they're like, oh, okay, this person's being attacked, grab them. That's why it's all like piratey and shit.
Yeah, and it could be also like those threshold guardians like closed it off and then sent her to that other time period to find out more information about the creature or about the thing. Yeah, because we didn't need more. We needed more information about this thing already to as a reader.
Of course, all the
Yeah,
information.
yeah. And then the next thing I have here. Listen to my story for one, he answered. I might save your life one day. Or it might save your life one day. Come. He turned away and what?
Nothing.
Okay. He turned away and began walking toward the dark archway, following closely by the red-maned witch. Stay a while and listen to my tale. Thanks, Deckard Cain from Diablo. Just like, I just got the same vibe. It's like, listen to my story for one.
Is he voiced by freaking?
No, it's just Sean Connery.
Yeah.
No, it's just like he's got that kind of like that kind of old man like kind of voice.
Gotcha.
So, but yeah, that's the end of chapter 6 for me for actual thoughts. So, Mikey.
Well, my actual thought for chapter 6 is that I liked that this changed the ending of Ellie Lambert.
Yeah, like we aren't just rereading another part of
Yeah.
Ellie Lambert's story. Like it did diverge.
Because I went into chapter 6 like I know what's going to happen,
Yeah.
and this happens, and this happens, and oh, this isn't what happened last time.
Pleasantly surprised at the moment.
Yes. So that was my takeaway from chapter 6 is that it gave us more weirdness as
Yeah.
opposed to just ending
Yeah.
like Ellie Lambert did.
Although I kind of wish, again, this is like not on the part of the story or anything, like nothing against the story or anything, but it's like I do kind of wish that we had gotten that part, like the full version of that part, and then we had gotten the after effects. But that's kind of like tying into the end of the story anyway as well.
Yeah.
Like, but yeah, because like that story like ends with like her blasting the thing through the door with the gun, and then her like seeing it like kind of decompose and like die away and some of that, and then going to repair her door or repair the door of her cottage, and that's how it ends. Like her just like crap, and then she goes and fixes her door.
Yeah.
So I was kind of hoping for this story to have like more after that, but we don't get that.
Yeah.
But like there was a tiny intro because like it was like she goes through this like she goes to like do that thing and then she ends up somewhere completely different and the story is diverged. I was like, ooh, like we're gonna get more. And then I finished the story and I was like, oh, we got more.
Then her gun is immediately taken away from her and she never uses it.
Yeah, right. At least in the other story, she got to use the gun. But yeah.
I'm unsure if it's going to be a Chekhov's gun situation. Like a gun is described. Will it ever be used?
Yeah.
I don't know. They described it so well. I feel like it's going to be a pivotal thing in the story, right?
Yeah, well, it was in the previous version of the story of these events, but then, yeah. But yeah, I'm with you there, Mikey, with the divergence.
And that's all I have for chapter 6.
All right, gamer.
Okay. So my first one is in regards to railgun law. It's saying that they were banned. The few remaining weapons that had escaped dismantlement under the Weapon Control Act were largely consigned to museums and subterranean vaults guarded by Jinn and dragons. Realistically, which starting this note by saying realistically is kind of dumb anyways, but realistically in the real world, if they were this serious about removing weapons from circulation like this, odds are the few that are in museums would either be non-functioning replicas or they'd be deactivated, which means like they'd be irreversibly modified internally so they can't be fired anymore.
Yeah. Similar to how like some guns are like they just like file down the pins or something.
Yeah, they do stuff to it internally where you can't just put parts back in and it works. Like they've removed pieces of the metal that like need to be there to make it all work together. So yeah, she kind of lucked out getting a fully functional one just from a museum with the ammo and everything, and like a very in-depth like maintenance guide and everything.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a museum trying to show like this is stuff from the era. This is what it was. This is how it works. So,
and it totes works. So you can just like don't break the glass and take this thing.
Yeah. I feel like the one there probably should have been a replica or like decommissioned, like I said, and not with the ammo, like live ammo. Just
seriously. Yeah.
Yeah.
Specifically, like anti-fey, like anti-fey or anti-magic rounds. Like seriously, like iron rounds with copper cores and silver tips. Like that's straight up just like anti-magic bullets.
Okay, I actually have a question about that.
Yeah.
What is the advantage of the copper core?
I know copper actually does have a role in some mythologies and faiths. I think out in like Asia, of like containing evil.
Really?
Although that might be brass. I might be thinking of. Hang on, copper.
I was trying to find it. The closest thing I could find is people theorizing just for like their own made up universes, using copper as a metal against elementals because it conducts like electricity.
Yeah, that
really well.
honestly, yeah, iron and copper in fantasy. Yeah, I'm seeing. Yeah, and copper is bad for magic itself, probably because it's a conductor of some kind. So like, yeah. Yeah, because again, in I think like again, I'm kind of basing my initial like surface level like remembering of like what copper is used for in mythology and folklore from the latest Ghostbusters movie, where I think they use copper or it might have been brass, to keep the like basically to house or imprison certain ghostly creatures.
Okay.
But it does make sense
because
again, copper is. Yeah, of course. But it does also make sense because like copper is a conductive metal, so like anything with like anything of a like an energy like with an energy kind of like component to it might like be able to be channeled through it, maybe.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
But the problem I had with that is it's in a railgun, which is moving the projectile through magnetism. Copper's not magnetic. So depending on how thick the copper core of this round is, you're making the entire projectile less magnetic, and the magnetism is what is causing it to work.
Are you saying that this fantasy series is not scientifically accurate?
Yes.
how a fictional sci-fi gun would work?
Hey man,
you're an all-star. Get your game on. Go play.
Yeah.
But yeah,
I like realistic fantasy.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah. Yep.
And to the story's credit, it does explain it as a proper railgun. Because when I first started hearing about it, I was like, okay, is this going to be a video game and movie railgun where it's just like it shoots energy?
Yeah.
But no, like it is described as a proper railgun.
Yeah.
Oddly enough, she has enough ammo to go hunting with it, which seems like overkill and unnecessary when she has bows and such, but I'm not going to judge.
Hey, I mean, it's something that she got. Again, I'd like to, honestly, like we were kind of like talking about, like, again, her flashback. I want to know that story. Yeah. Where's that story of her breaking into an ancient Safrasian museum and acquiring this rifle and some of that with some friends of hers? Like, what happened there? I want to see that story.
I feel like for her getting the gun, it would make more sense if she broke into one of those underground vaults that's guarded by Jinn and dragons. Yeah. Because it's not a public museum, that people can just grab live firearms and run away fully loaded and good to go.
Oh, and then she could use the gun against one of the Jinn, because Jinns are generally an elemental kind of race or creature.
Yep.
So, like, there's the use for the copper.
For sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. The idea of her hunting with it is a little ridiculous, especially with how like very illegal it is.
Yeah, like
It's like the most illegal thing possible, and she's going hunting with it.
Yeah. Like, I think actually in the previous, again, iteration of the story with Ellie Lambert, we don't get part of this. We get another part that's like says we don't get the flashback of her like acquiring the gun, but we do get a part where she says like if she was in the mortal world, this would be confiscated almost immediately.
Yeah.
But basically insinuating that she had smuggled this back with her, and like she had this in like a special compartment in her luggage that she could pull it out from.
And that's the same case here. She was hiding it in the closet because you need like very specific licenses to even own one.
Yeah. I also, again, just do love this scene of like this creature like knocking at her door, like, and like she's like getting freaked out and stuff. And it's like, all right, motherfucker, I got a surprise for you. It just pulls out this like giant, like, it's like Burt Gummer moment. Just pulls out this like high end gun. It's like your one weakness, bullets.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah. Again,
it does not get fired.
No, not in this iteration, sadly.
Soon,
maybe. But yeah.
Yeah, I think that's basically all my notes on chapter 1, all combined into one, technically.
Yeah.
Because it's all just basically about the railgun.
Yeah, that kick-ass railgun. So Shadowrun.
Theoretically kick-ass railgun.
Yeah, theoretically. Honestly, like, again, like, this feels, again, very Shadowrun, very Rifts, sort of like D&D tabletop RPG kind of like leanings for me in my head. Like how I'm like affiliating the story.
You know what would be kind of fun?
Mm-hmm.
If it didn't mention that she hunted with it, that just that she had it, and she like has it through this whole story, doesn't use it. It shows up later. There's this huge creature. She loads it, and it doesn't work because it's like decommissioned.
Yeah, that would be so good. Like, because again, I don't think the hunting aspect was even mentioned in the other story as well. So like, it was to me and Mikey, or it was just kind of like. It didn't come out of Left Hand per se, but it just like, don't worry, I got a surprise for you. Like, and just like, and she got this gun ready and she like fired it through the door and killed the creature. And it's just like, yeah, that would be so funny. Like, as a horror moment, it's like, I got this thing from this museum. Taste this. Click. Fuck.
Yeah.
And then the horror, like, because that's the horror aspect of the story. Or it's just like, sure, you can have this gun that you found in a museum. It doesn't work.
You can sure have it though.
Yeah, if it makes you feel better. It's like, again, like in a Delta Green game or like in any kind of like horror game, when your players suddenly get like a huge cache of like weapons and stuff like that, that's usually a bad sign. That means that like, none of this is gonna help, is it? It's like, no, but it's gonna make you feel better. Up until the point where the shit hits the fan, like that guy. So yeah. That would have been actually a really cool moment if it like, yeah, it was like, eat this. Click. Fuck. But that's all you got for chapter 6?
Yes.
All right. Then we move on to chapter 7, The Waif. So I got this one here. Suddenly, something small and hard jammed against his rear molar. Victor cursed under his breath as he extracted something that resembled a flattened glass eye. As he stared in astonishment, the gem began to flicker and flame, its eerie green glow resembling that of a firefly. It's the gem! The plot thickens! The threads, they connect! Also, later on, it describes it as a monocle in his dream state when he's like in the lost rooms. And it allows Victor to look through doors or see the truth of something that's in front of him. Kind of like the lens of truth from Legend of Zelda. I just thought that was really cool that we actually get to see what this thing does, even though like in the previous story, it seemed like it had a more sinister like aspect to it.
All it's done so far is choke Cass and confuse me.
Yeah, and now apparently it is actually. Well, now we found out it's actually also like kind of it's sort of a monocle like device that you can see like the truth of things through its lens, which is actually really cool.
Mm-hmm. Well, and it seems to only show up when shit hits the fan.
Yeah,
defense mechanism.
Yeah. So it just pops in.
Blue emerald, give me sight beyond sight.
Like, yeah, blue emerald. What?
That's what it is.
I know. Also, yeah, this version says like it flickers and flames green. It's like, all right, so it's clearly green, not blue.
It can be blue and glow
It can be
green. It's
both.
a
It could be-
magical artifact.
It's aquamarine. It's blue and green.
It's magic.
Yeah.
Okay, if I have a magic wand and
You don't- yeah.
it is glowing blue, that doesn't mean that the wand is blue. It could be a wood stick that's glowing blue.
Oh, I understand.
Yes.
Yeah. But I'll move on to the next thing I have. He must have fainted at some point, for the next thing he knew, he was on the drawing room divan. And to that I was like, what the hell's a divan? So apparently it's a type of sofa that like used you kind of see it a lot in like Victorian London, like in films that are set in Victorian England. Like the it's that like lounging sofa.
Yeah, I was gonna say, is it the lounging sofa thing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I learned what that couch is called.
Mhm.
So that was cool.
Our interior decorator knowledge increased today. Hooray!
Yeah.
That's a first.
Huzzah. I can use this in descriptors in my MMO, my tabletop games. On one less die. Plug. The next thing I have here is when she was a kitchen maid, even with her plain Jane glamour mask, the village folk still viewed her with contempt, bordering on superstitious dread. But most of the people here at Basharn Manor, or at Basharn, that's how I'm going to say it. It might be Basharn, but Basharn.
We're gonna say it wrong regardless.
Yeah.
So it's fine. Just
until
pick one and roll with it.
Until corrected by the author. But yeah, Basharn completely ignored her. But most of the people at Basharn completely ignored her, just like the people back in her universe, including her very own family, who focused all their attention on her more gifted, better-looking siblings. Man, so this series has really taken a turn in making the waif short hoggers, the thing at the door, have a tragic past. Like,
Yeah, actually,
if this is actually like the original version of this creature that's been stalking Kess and stuff like that, and that we've been dealing with this entire series, like we actually get it. It actually has a pretty tragic backstory because it's just this. It was like originally this Hualouth girl.
we know that for a fact
Well,
that
and
is
maybe,
her.
Maybe it isn't easy because it might even just be the horror that killed Anne and took
Yeah.
her shape-shifting ability, like because she was able to, because like maybe it took her trait of like manipulating the glamour, and that's why it can assume different forms.
Yeah, because like in the dreams that Victor was having, like she was dead on the ground as a like a marionette or whatever.
Oh, and I got that later on my story, or in my notes here, because like I actually really liked that description of the marionette stuff. But yeah, like maybe, but still, like we still get like again more tragic past stuff about this creature, at least like from its victims.
Yes.
Yeah. Mikey, did you want to say something? Sorry, I think you heard you.
Well, I'm sort of the opinion that there is two monsters.
I mean, it was apparently split in two. So,
Yes.
Though apparently that didn't matter. Like that doesn't mean that it's two separate creatures, according to one character in the story. It's very kind of convoluted.
Yeah, well, it's because the maid that has the glamour, basically, she shows up as Ellie Lambert.
Yeah.
So at that point, it doesn't feel like the same monster as the one that's in the Lost Rooms.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, like, but then like, but we see Anne, we see Anne Milton's body on the ground in the Lost Rooms, and that it had been like drained like the like all the other victims that this thing has had. But then again, it also said later on that like it may have been afraid. It may have because it was afraid of the spider web thing, which I'll go into later in my notes. Because it might have taken a part out, taken a part of its victim into itself. Because the creature seems to have when it drains somebody, it takes in aspects and parts of its victims. So including memories and stuff like that. So I think it might still be one entity or one creature. It's just it can assume different forms.
Except that they said that there's two of them now.
It said that, but then then when Kess was worried that there's actually two of them, the other character said "Oh, don't worry, it probably isn't two creatures, or two separate things." And it left me really why? Why did you say that?
Because she was freaking out and wanting to leave.
Yeah.
So he's basically said that to keep her around.
Well,
I was like, "Oh no, it's fine.
Don't worry about it." Yeah.
Well, my problem is if it is one creature, then in my mind it's like the whole artifact issue that we had, where it glowed green in one story and then it didn't glow green at all in the next story, but it was blue, and then it just there's the continuity for me feels like two monsters.
Yeah. I get you.
Each monster has its own gem. One is blue and one's green.
God damn it! yeah. That's how that
The blue
works.
one is the one that is the lens of truth. The green one is the one that turns into a butterfly and chokes people.
Tries to go down your gullet.
That's all it does.
Yeah, it's just a murder coin.
Yeah. It's an assassination weapon.
It's a murder poker chip. A murder chip. Wow. But I'll continue on to the next thing I have here. Yeah. So this is the quote here. "Anna, this is no time for any of your wild fancies," said Clarissa firmly. "There's nothing up there except for some mice and cobwebs and some old furniture. We've discussed this already. The wish can only work if there's one person at a time, not two or three or more." Anna's brow furrowed worriedly. You'll be right here at this door, keeping watch. And if I need any help?" Smiling, Clarissa patted the girl's arm gently. "I'll stay right," she assured Anne. "Now hurry and finish those knocks." So, and this is all being told to Kess by Captain Jarvis. And I just gotta say, Captain Jarvis is one hell of a storyteller. Since this is all dialogue as the captain tells this tale to Kess.
Which means it's not word for word as Clarissa's explaining it all.
God damn it. God damn you.
Well, what's the matter?
Damn you to the pits of Wellow, Earth, sir.
What would I do?
Yeah, I wonder. Any
know.
90s kid will know what you did.
You know.
If you know, you know. Yeah. Also, it is cool that this story does deviate, like we said earlier, from the Ellie Lambert story here, and because I was expecting it to end the way it did, but we shifted gears with this teleportation of Kess and getting more information of the things at the doorstep, with this whole conversation with the Captain Jarvis and stuff. It is a kind of long-winded. As I was reading the story, and it kept going on and on and on, I was actually kind of getting bored. Or just maybe not bored's not the right word, but I was kind of getting exhausted. It was so when are we going to deal with the thing at the door? When are we going to stop getting exposition and actually do something?
Remember this. This entire entry
is
supposed to be exposition for bookstore horror. Right?
Hang on, is it?
Yeah, isn't it? Because it goes onto this.
Oh God, you're right.
The whole point of this was to try to explain what the green emerald that glows blue and chokes people does.
I had forgot that this was actually a flashback because we'd had so many flashbacks.
Yeah, because like we
This is
get a flashback, and then another flashback starts, and then the character goes somewhere else, and other people are explaining something else that's completely unrelated.
yeah, and like that seems to be a theme in the in the last day of October stories is like Kess being told stories by other people.
Yes.
Like it's
Yes,
just a long-winded like series of stories recollected to the main character.
Tess is basically going from movie theater to movie theater, and
Yeah,
not much is happening to her in between. She's just listening to story after story.
yeah. The last day of October. Stay a while and listen to my tales. Like just yeah, it's just a long-running series of just story recollections.
That being said, this one is talking about the coin. Like we did
Yes,
get back to it.
Yeah, we are getting more about the story, the coin. We're also just getting a lot of other stuff, like about like this new Lost Rooms location, and like we're learning actually a little bit more information about the Van Devereaux and specifically Clarissa Van Devereaux, which we did hear about in the short Hoggers in the original part of in the original story that Kess flashback to when she was explaining to her magical or her new pets about her life before ending up in Swanwick. Like about that newspaper article and stuff like that, and how it all ties together. It's really long-winded to me.
Well, here's the thing.
Yeah.
Most of the time when we are reading a creepy story, it is okay, it's the real world, and then a spooky monster shows up.
Yeah.
It's very singular. This is the thing. The focus is on that thing, and then you're done. But with this, we are in a fantasy world where everything is different than real life, except for the stuff that isn't. But there's like so much stuff that's different. And like, yes, there is this one weird thing happening, and it's connected to other weird things, but then all these other different unrelated weird things are also happening, but also need to be described to the reader, otherwise they're confused.
Yeah, and I don't want to sound like I'm that's necessarily a bad thing. Like I was thinking oh, just like I hate this. Like I don't actually hate this. It's just I was getting exhausted by the end because we're on the final stretch of this story and this series, and I was just like I think I was just like finally getting fatigue.
You know what this is? Basically, this is if you jump in halfway through someone's D&D campaign that is like a completely unique universe that you don't understand.
Yeah.
Because like you have to like pick up the pieces and then find out what's going on and learn about the whole world like as you're going through. Or hell, it's even like episode 1 of a GM running a game that is a completely unique universe. It all has to be explained.
Yeah.
As it should. Because it's a huge fleshed out world with all these different universes and stuff.
That the author or the creator has like lovingly created. Like but has to explain it to a bunch of people who aren't in their head. And I get that. It's just like, again, like as a reader, I was getting exhausted by this point. Yeah. But yeah, I'll move on to the last thing I have for chapter 7. This is describing a word that actually I learned again. No, of Clarissa herself. For this coquettish temptress was an incredible manipulator and was capable of turning people against the Boisverts, since there was never a shortage of allies and champions ready to defend a pretty girl's perceived honor. So, conquetish, or coquettish, or coquettish. Coquettish or coquettish? Coquettish. It's an adjective. Behaving in such a way as to suggest a playful sexual attraction, flirtatious.
Yeah, I've heard it before. I've heard people say it before. I've seen it written before. I don't remember how it's said though.
I don't think I've ever heard this like said.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But yeah, I learned another word today. Yeah. But that's the end of chapter 7 for me. So, Mikey.
I'm just gonna parrot a bit what you said. Is that my eyes started glazing over with the stories within stories, and just the I was just like, get to the point.
Yeah, that's
And
yeah.
what
Yeah.
and this probably bleeds into the next couple chapters, but like the whole we get a story about the the guy, um what's his name? I
Victor?
didn't write this down. Victor, yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
get Victor's story,
Yeah.
and it's basically a repeat of the Ellie Lambert story because it's like, oh, at a party and somebody with a glamour, oh, their face changes,
Oh my
and
God,
ooh,
you're right. Yeah, we find out that. So like, yeah, so I guess yeah, the shapeshifting could also just be like a glamour the whole time. It wasn't
yeah,
actually like a shape-shifting entity. It was just a glamour that they were putting on.
mm-hmm,
Yeah, that makes sense. Oh, like and I think I have something down the way that like something is brought up and I was like, wait, is this how this universe works? It just again it adds to like a little bit more questions or possibly some confusion about the setting that I have or like with the cosmology. Um
mm-hmm,
so yeah, because like again, like we see in this story specifically, we see maybe this is supposedly we see Anne Milton's dried up husk of a corpse in the lost rooms, according to Victor. But
Question.
but
Question. Question. Was it a dried up husk? I thought it was a mannequin that was on the ground that was just in the pose of that.
here's the thing. I liked the description of because he sees like as he's walking through these hallways, like mannequins and stuff like that, and then he's at that end of that story, that end of that chapter, he realizes that they aren't mannequins; they're dried husks of bodies.
Were they
But
actually though?
it leaves it ambiguous. It leaves it ambiguous because like for the readers, like, oh, those weren't actually like mannequins because he was just like looking at them at a glance. They were actually when he looked at them longer, he realized they were actually like just dried up husks of bodies. Because like again, like a mummy might like a desiccated body, like a mummy might look like wood, like a wooden figure.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay.
Yeah.
but at the same time, the problem is that this happens in his dreams.
Yeah, except the dream world and see the thing that this is actually kind of what breaks it away from like other stories that have dream sequences. Because in these dream sequences, shit is actually like affecting the real world as well, and he's not just entering a dream world; he's entering like another space, another reality.
Yeah, he's technically not dreaming. He's like astral projecting.
Which is yeah, exactly. Yeah, it like he's astral projecting through sleep into these other realities. And like this is sort of like a place of magic, like or like again, like this is like the lost rooms, like these 700 some odd rooms that magically vanished from a manor and are now like the back rooms basically. So it does differ from like just a simple dream sequence kind of thing because like well I guess he started off in a dream or he started off like dreaming in a sense because he's like sleeping and then his mind is wandering somewhere else. It's more like Gamer said, astral projection or like dream exploration.
Mm.
But yeah,
So
yeah, there's a lot of assumptions and you know what that means. It makes an ass of you and umption.
Mm. Yeah, so that's my notes for this chapter.
Okay. I hope we didn't just like bully over your thing there.
it's like, I disagree. Moving
all
on.
right.
Okay. Gamer, do you have anything for chapter 7?
Yeah.
Okay.
First one. I'm gonna talk about the gun again. I'm sorry. So basically, she gets there and she has to like hand the gun off to one of the like Sphinx beasts.
Yeah.
It says the first beast snorted indignantly before cracking open the rifle and emptying out the ammunition. So, based on the image and from what's said, they're quite large beasts, and their hands/paws don't exactly look as dexterous as a human. So even if they knew how to work this reportedly ancient and advanced firearm, which apparently they do for reasons, how could they work it with how big they are? It's made for a humanoid.
here's the thing also, like, well, sphinxes can like have manipulations and stuff like that, but also it does actually specify that Gurdons, especially in this story, have claws as well. They don't just have like regular hands, they have like clawed hands.
Bruh.
So they
Bruh.
bruh.
I ain't talking about the Gurdons. I'm talking about the giant sphinx
I know,
creatures
but
with
what
the
I'm
tentacle fingers.
I understand. Well, also like that's the way it's drawn, but I think it's actually meant to be like more like talons or claws, because it's a sphinx-like creature. But the why I was explaining the Gurdon thing was because this weapon is by ancient Sophrosians or Gurdons. So it's like it uses so like because of that it's not simply like a human weapon. It was designed by Gurdons who have claws.
Okay, but they have normal human proportions, is what I'm saying. And yes, looking at the image again of the sphinxes, they are actually more like talons, so maybe they aren't as like floppy as they seemed at first glance.
Yeah, I think the illustration's a little like exaggerated, but yeah. Also, I mean,
think it's just I didn't zoom into it, honestly.
Fair. Also, like my kind of like throwaway explanation for this is it's a fantasy thing. Like, it's like like we're dealing with a lot of like fantasy stuff, so like why not have the Sphinx just like cock the fucking gun and pull the ammo out, or maybe not cock the gun, but like. You know what I mean?
I do. Cracking open the rifle and emptying out the ammunition is what it said.
my suspension of disbelief was low for the story.
Yeah, I don't know why my head is still like, no, this has to be real.
But you know what? Because we're so used to to having almost a balance between like the mundane world of Curtisville and like the fantastical aspects in Curtisville. That it did have a groundedness when we were still in like Midgard Earth, but we've been lingering around in fantasy Waldalchia and Swanwick and Sophrosia. That it's sort of been getting more and more fantasy like D&D-esque kind of aspect rather than like D20 modern.
we're like hip deep in fantasy at this point.
Oh yeah. Like the levels of like mundanity versus fantastical is definitely like the balance has shifted. It's now more of like more fantasy than mundane. Like just like mundane aspects in the fantasy versus like fantasy aspects in the mundane.
Yes. Yeah, I just need to quickly check something. Okay. So in regards to Martina Cavendish saying where they were, or where Kess is, where they all are technically, says a location, all that, and then Kess says, "Oh my gods!" Kess swayed on her feet, her thin cheeks ash gray, staring down at the carpeted floor. 5,584.884 miles.
Mm-hmm.
That's what she muttered. It's like, I've not only gone back through time, I've gone across the blooming Hyperbian Sea and sending content. So, like, that's extremely accurate. Is Kess a GPS? Like, or down like, to the mile marker.
Maybe Gurdons have like eidetic memory and like are really fast to calculate shit.
Maybe, but holy crap!
Yeah, no, it is ridiculous. But then again, like they also have like apparently Gurdons also have like advanced like high tech like future tech because like they're like I remember there's another part of the story where like the captain said they took down a Gurdon merchant ship and Kess marveled at that because it apparently Gurdon merchant ships are like high end high tech airships.
Yes, but
like, yeah,
describing that to people from the past. So if I drove a Honda Civic in front of someone from the Middle Ages, they'll think it's advanced as fuck.
Yeah, but no, but that's but like it is in that era because Captain Jarvis like took those down. Like so they're from like they're in that setting. Like they're in that time period too.
Yeah, but so is Kess, and she's not from that time period. Do you get what I'm saying?
Yeah. Also,
There's
a
a
lot
bunch of stuff bleeding into this universe from all different time eras.
Yeah, no, there really is. Also, like, I like how Captain Jarvis is just nonplussed by like this time traveler.
Yeah.
Just
And
absolutely. Yeah.
also, like, in regards to her accuracy with the distance,
Yeah.
what's the weirdest part about it? No one questions her about the accuracy of
No.
that statement.
Absolutely not. It's just so. Also, yeah, just it's like, man, that is some ingrained random trivia you have there. I guess.
Yeah.
Just like, wow, that's 5,500 to be exact, or roughly.
I'd be totally fine if it's like 5,000 miles away across this sea and that sea. That's great.
Hell,
That's
it's like-
tough. That's
yeah.
totally fine.
Or hell, if she said like that's across an ocean and a continent away from where I was, like there, bam, like don't need to go to like super specs because like it's far away.
Yeah.
It's impossibly far away. Like there you go, bam.
Mhm.
But yeah, the you know what this is this the minute is this the minutes conversation all over again, or the minutes
What, minutes
debate?
and moments?
Yeah, minutes and moments debate that we're having already again.
I
Where
mean,
it's
kind
like-
of.
where like the character is super specific about like a measurement of time or space, and we're just like, that seems improbable that they'd know that exact thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's just a guesstimate.
Oh,
Yeah.
is it?
Yeah, and the whole chumminess of the captain, to me it feels like it's like, oh, it's happened again. I got another one from the lost room. Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
that could
Probably
be
got a
it.
script at this point.
Yeah, that definitely could be it. Or like like it'd be interesting to like it'd be really cool if like we actually like if we got like a later story, or if it had been like a later chapter in the series where it was revealed that like he was also like, or like he also like had some adventures that went forward in time and then came back or something. I don't know. It is sort of just like he's super chill about this whole situation. And like
Again, he's seen so many people come and go from all
Yeah.
different time periods, it seems.
yeah.
So,
And again, we are in fairy, so like a lot of that multiverse stuff like is just like casual. So, yeah.
yeah, back to the accuracy, the GPS accuracy.
Yeah.
One way
Sorry.
you can actually say it, if you want to say it, is like there is a narrator in this that narrates very small amounts of this story. So it could cut to the narrator saying like, Kess sat there with her head in her hands, realizing that she's 5,584.884 miles away from home. Because then that's the narrator saying it. The narrator can and should know all. Not Kess necessarily, though.
Hey, what's that measurement again? The
5,584.884. Wait.
wait.
Oh, wow, it's down to the decimal point? I just realized it's down to the decimal point. Ah, the accuracy.
Oh man, all I can think of is like because you're bringing up it's like she's a GPS like in 5,584.84 a lot miles. You have reached your destination.
Yeah. Oh my god, I can't believe I just realized that point means point.
Yeah. It is so like ridiculously accurate there.
Wow.
See, I almost MM Pratt, if you're listening.
Wow.
I would really like a map of your fairy world. Like,
Mhm.
please. I like as somebody
Clearly a lot
who,
like thought into it, so
yeah.
it's
like-
got to be developed.
Like I genuinely love these stories, and the world in these stories. And as a person who loves like maps and has seen like all these different locations like Waldalchia, Safrasia, Valerian, like all these different places, Bognar. I want to know the Hyperborean Sea. Like I want to see that visualized as a map.
It does seem sweet.
Hell, even like a map of the solar of the Yggdrasil system, like visualized, would be really cool.
It sounds like we're reading a creepypasta from someone who like runs like constant D&D campaigns about like in this world, you know.
Absolutely agree. Like these really do feel like a D&D campaign. Like or like the kind of world building that you'd see in a D&D campaign. And that's a good thing. That's really cool. It's just there's a lot here.
A lot to unpack for sure.
Yeah.
But it's all pretty interesting once all the ties are all tied together, so you understand what goes where.
Yeah.
But I'll move on from the distance situation because we talked about that for more than long enough. More than I thought we would, honestly.
You brought it back up, and I was like, I don't have anything on that, but what the hell? Yeah. Like, yeah. Anyway, continue.
This one is I forget who's saying it. I'm assuming the captain's saying this too, Kess. Actually, no, this is the winch because the accent. When a freebooter's waving a plasma gun in your face and telling ye what to do, ye do what he says without riddle. And then Kess says, riddle? Kess asked? Back talk. Oh, okay. I like that exchange, honestly.
Yeah.
Kess being basically a reader surrogate and like asking the question I wanted to ask the wench. Like, what do you mean riddle? Oh, thank you. Okay. Like, yeah. I like that sort of exchange because like there's a lot of stories where they don't do this sort of thing where the characters all know everything. They all understand what everyone else is saying because the writer understands everything, but the characters don't necessarily know what the writer knows, you know? And this is a good example of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree with that.
And that's my last note for 7.
All right. On to chapter 8. On to chapter 8. Oubliette. Now, first off, Oubliette, just for anybody who doesn't know, is a dungeon is a type of dungeon, like a real world like type of dungeon, with an opening only at the top. I only bring this up because like I was aware of the
Batman
word
dungeon where he was born in the darkness.
Yeah, I only bring this up because I don't know, actually that might have been an oubliette.
It's just a hole in the top. They're just throwing in a hole.
oubliette, mom, bae. That like remember that chant that's in the dark was that the Dark Knight Rises?
Probably because he's rising from the hole. I don't know. I don't remember.
But yeah, I just had to bring that up because it's an interesting word and it's never mentioned in the story, but it's a type of dungeon. But I'll move on to the next thing I have here. As he moved from one heavily decorated and spacious room to another, Victor noticed the initial V embellished on every visible object within these interiors, including that of the wallpaper. After three more nights of exploring, he finally understood where he was. He was in the lost rooms of the Vanderveros. Kess stared. The lost rooms? And to that I was just like, they're like the back rooms, but for the lands of fairy. And honestly, that's not too far off. I think like no. They feel like again, it's because like rooms is there, but like the lost rooms feels very much like a liminal space, like the back rooms. And then we get more of an explanation about the lost rooms here. Yeah, so this is about like the Basharn Manor. The original building used to have been a massive castle, passing through several great dynasties before it came to be held by the Vandeveros. Used to contain about 1,000 rooms until someone fooled around with some black magic and teleported 754 of those rooms all around the multiverse. It also brought about a curse that corrupted their bloodline, leading to various kinds of physical and mental aberrations. So I read that and I was like, so is this something that's tied? Like, is this sort of explaining that house of many doors and hallways that like go to different like realities and different dimensions in the multiverse that we saw previously? You know, where the
God, I forgot about that.
Right? Or is this just another liminal like trans-dimensional space that like is like a hub for various different like entryways and exits? to the multiverse. Like, is this the same place, or is this another like jump terminal, as Dr. Akron had mentioned?
The same place.
It feels like it is, like, because there are
Maybe
inhabitants in
yet, though.
there that are like, there are even inhabitants that are like living in these rooms as well, that like also cower from when I think they do cower from Victor as he's walking through the halls. So like, I just don't know. Again, I'm not sure like where to put this red thread. Like, I feel like it should maybe connect and then have like a question mark between. But yeah, it's just like, man, this. I know liminal spaces are really in right now, but when this story was written, I don't think they were. But man, liminal spaces all the way down, right, all the way down the ooblet. But I digress. I'll move on to the next thing here. But Victor would only learn about those defections years later. Captain Jarvis paused as he puffed on his pipe some more. That, however, is a whole different story. One I'm sure we'll get around to reading at some point down the road, if it exists. Just a little quip about, how all these stories have like the sort of branching off stories.
Does exist, it will.
Yeah. And then we got this part. Why me? This is a magic door, the voice told him. It can only be opened by someone with magic. It can't be opened by an ordinary human. That's what the witches told us before they slammed the door in our faces. What witches? And then to that, I'm like, fire witches? Seriously, Fire Witch Watch is still going. Where are they? Why have they not been mentioned yet in the story that was supposed to be about fire witches, according to M.M. Pratt's message to us?
I forgot about that.
The whole last day of October. Maybe she meant the first story of the last day of October, but this is an entire series. Maybe that one was about fire witches, and like, but honestly, again, there's just like, we haven't heard that term at all mentioned in any of these stories. But I'll move on to the next thing I have. The ones who built this gate, the voice stammered out. The mutants, the ones calling themselves the Einsel, the Esk, the Niam, and all the other Espers, Psyches, and Wild Talents. Victor gave a start. The names mentioned were of the various abhuman and magic-wielding tribes scattered in colonies throughout the 9 worlds. Now he realized which particular world stood outside the door he was now facing. The old Mother Earth, or Terra, where all the mutants and magic users had originated. And from where they had fled centuries ago to escape oppression and annihilation from the normal majority government. Oh, what? Like, literally, that was my reaction. After reading that, I was like, sorry. So like, all the fairies and like magic wielding creatures and stuff like that of fairy, are they all like magic wielding mutants and aliens from this that fled an alternate, or I guess an origin Earth dimension? And is that Hualau Earth? Because like Hualau Earth was like just decimated. This leaves this one paragraph of lines left me with a number of questions about the cosmology yet again for this series. And again, like, I like the idea of it. Like, don't get me wrong. Like, I love this idea of like we're getting some backstory about the world, the whole like the universe itself, like where apparently all these like different like fairy factions and magical wielding creatures and stuff all came from. They all fled this old Earth dimension, to escape persecution, some of that, and then they formed like these other creatures and these magical like factions and stuff like that. It's just it was just tossed in here, and it's just like, what?
Like, they all fled that Earth to a different dimension, but what creatures are from that other dimension?
It kind of seems like all like basically all the ones that we've heard about, because we've got like the Einsel and the Esk and the Niams and stuff. Those are all fairy creatures, like creatures of fairy.
Yeah.
So like, are they all so? And then like, so is Midgard? So we kind of know that Midgard Earth, that's referenced, is the mortal plane of Earth that like Curtisville and such are in, I think. And then everything else seems to be in like the reality, in sort of like the domains of fairy and beyond, like sort of in the multiverse, in this multiverse kind of like network of worlds. But are all the creatures that we see, all the elf creatures and the Gurdons and all the Ainsel fairies and stuff like that, are they like they're all like mythological and folklore creatures that we see that are mentioned and referenced in Midgard's Earth? They all came from another Earth that had magical mutations and creatures, and they fled that world because all the normal humans and stuff like that were like fearful of them. I love the origin, the idea of the origin story stuff here, but it's just kind of tossed into a story that also already has so much like throwing at us that it's just like I need a little bit more of a more coherent story to explain the origins of the world.
Yeah, even after reading all these, I still feel like I'm in media res.
Yeah, no, I kind of with you on that. And it's just like, I think it's because like we're like this story's being told to us and stuff like that, and meanwhile I'm thinking it's like, all right, so when's Kess gonna deal with that gonna get back to her place in Swanwick and deal with that thing at her doorstep? Like, this is a lot of cool information we're getting, but I feel like we're losing the plot here. Like it's the story itself is meandering off the trail of the plot and going into these other exposition bits that aren't unwelcome. They're just kind of like, there's a lot of it.
Yeah.
Just a lot of it happening.
This whole thing is very dream logic-y, which is actually where
and makes
a lot of the inspiration actually comes from, right? Yeah,
because it does seem like a fair amount of her writing does come from M.M. Pratt's dreams. As far as the comments and stuff that she's left in some of these stories is to be indicated. And again, also this story itself is technically a fucking dream flashback of Kess, like in the Gregory's home in Asgard, right? So.
Yeah, like she's sleeping in the owner of the inn or the bookstore.
Yep.
Right?
Yes.
After telling her animals about what happened.
No, hang on. So we are so according to the continuity here, Kess, who after talking to Dr. Ackern at the bookstore, is staying at the bookstore owner's home in their guest room because the rains and the storm over Asgard is still pretty bad. So she's staying there, and she when she goes to sleep, she dreams the flashback of her time in Swanwick, like 3 years prior, and then tells her animal pets that she gets in Swanwick there about about her time a few years prior to that. About like the whole like how she got to Swanwick or before her time before Swanwick and all that stuff, which was a flashback in a dream. And then she's woken up from that flashback, from those dreams and stuff like that, back into the first flashback, to the tapping at her door, goes to get her gun, gets teleported across time and space to Port Bognar, in a pirate era, and then being relayed this information of what she's being faced with in Swanwick by a pirate captain who's telling her a series of stories that happened in the past as well. But that's all being told from a flashback point of view in a dream. And Kess is still sleeping in the Gregory's home as this is going on.
Hell of a dream.
Man. Blah. Just infinite blah. Yeah.
So at some point though, she will wake up.
Maybe. And deal with the thing again, because apparently it's back. Even after she supposedly killed it in 2012. Now she still has to deal with it in 2017. Or whenever whenever the bookstore horror happened. Well, at least in the Ellie Lambert story version of this story, she guns it down and it dies, or it like dissolves.
This story, that's a different story now.
Yeah,
she didn't kill it.
She has. Yeah, we don't get that part in this story because it ends abruptly.
Yeah, she has not confronted it yet. She was about to, and then she got pulled into this other universe.
True. Yes.
Such a good we talked about that.
Yeah.
It's good to like lay everything out on the table a bit.
Yeah, just to help, like, because we're trying to piece together this whole narrative that's been going across multiple stories. But I'll move on to the next thing I have here. So this is, again, we're back in Victor, dealing with the voices. And the voices again, more clearly now, they speak. They say, "With blood, break them with your blood." Victor stood silent for a moment. Then a cold chill settled over him as he realized what he was expected to do. "This blade just won't do. It's much too blunt," he finally said in a choked whisper. "But I might have a whetstone on me." And so, like, this whole thing of like these voices want him to like break this lock or something like that with his blood, and so it just seems like seems like a red flag to me. Like,
yeah.
Maybe I'm a little too genre savvy, but like this is clearly a trap, right, guys? Like right off the hop.
Blood sacrifice to release someone from a door that has writings all over it saying like, no matter what you hear, do not open this door.
Yeah, and then hearing like yeah,
seems kind of red flaggy.
And then hearing like a little girl's voice or something on the other side is like, yeah, that's that. I don't believe that voice at all.
That there's also one big sort of problem. He's in a dreamlike state. If he hurts himself,
he'll wake up.
He'll wake up, and what's to say he would even draw blood?
Or will he? Or will he?
Yeah.
Because again, this is
dreaming.
He's dream walking, which is different from regular dreaming because he's astral projecting, which is just dream walking.
Yeah. But if he perceives pain, then he's gonna wake up.
Well, that's true. Also, yeah, he does wake up because he gets a bony arm like grabs his wrist or something like that and like causes him pain, and that's when he wakes up.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it is actually working on dream logic. Except would he because he's in this dream-like state, like would he perceive pain of slitting his own palm?
He might also not actually be slitting his skin and like causing blood to come out. It's just the you're giving the mental consent basically through that you're okay with letting this thing out.
God. Yeah. Yeah. My last thing for chapter 8 is just the mannequins like the sprawled on the floor, and then he realizes that it's actually wearing like a tattered, dusty remnants of a servant's or serving maid's outfit, and realizes that it's a dried up husk of a of possibly of Anne. And again, I just like that reveal that like the mannequin in quotes that he saw initially was not a mannequin. That was a really cool like aspect of it. But I'm done for chapter 8. I'm tired. Mikey.
I'm good.
Okay. Gamer, do you have anything for chapter 8?
Oh, probably. Not much though. So in regards to Victor like exploring the lost rooms every night, doing it for ages, does he not tell anyone that he's doing this?
Yeah.
Like, I feel like mentioning this to someone knowledgeable would help a lot, both with his sanity and with his survival in there.
Well,
like because he reportedly knows that it's not a dream, and he's actually exploring these lost rooms, and he knows about them. But like, why wouldn't he ask anyone for help?
Yeah, they're definitely like. Unless it's just like, well, it's just not what people did back then. They wrote it all down and like kept it all to themselves. But I do hear what you're saying. Like also it does say like, does it say like specifically like he was in these rooms like for quite a while initially?
It says that like day after day he's going through, getting deeper and deeper through the lost rooms.
That's interesting because I think it also says at the end here that the mannequin stuff this was like on the third day, and that's when like he stopped dreaming it or stopped going there. But I might just be like misremembering the timeline here.
How would I even find this?
I'm sorry, dude.
Day. There's 22 instances of day. Holiday. Days, maybe. 4 instances of days. Here we go. Nowadays. All my born days. Goddamn days. I can't find it. I'll have to skim. But to me, it felt like he was doing it forever.
Yeah. It sounded like initially like he's like, oh, he's been at this for like days and days and days, and then it sounded by the end like they'd only been like on the third day is when like this weird shit started happening, and he was jotting all this stuff down in a journal of some kind.
Each night he would wake in a heavy sweat, heart pounding, limb shaking.
Mom's
each
spaghetti.
time each time I managed to get through several rooms, but woke up just before reaching the basement door. Maybe it's just because it's saying like each night he does this and each time he does this. It's like, did he ever do it? It sounds like he's doing it forever.
Yeah, I think that's what we're getting caught up on. So, so I didn't mean to drag this part out too much.
It wasn't until the third night of his discovery.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I remember hearing. Yeah, third night of his discovery. So was he having these dreams afterward, like after his like encounter with the voice, the voices beyond the door?
No, I think the third night of this happening is when he stares at the door and begins to shake and all that and scratching sound and yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, it's only 3 days. I misunderstood.
That's fair.
Which is less insane because I thought he was doing this for like months.
Yeah. Well, and that's what it kind of sounds like initially, but then like you realize it's only been 3 nights.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Whoopsie.
It's okay.
But I'll move on. So he gets to the door and he's hearing the unknown creature behind it talking to him, and the creature lists like what others call his people, like that they're beings of chaos and disorder, that they ruin everything they touch. They're walking virus factories. They're able to cancel spells, kill other people with their own shadows. That's what this thing is telling Victor.
Yeah.
But he's saying that they don't do that. But this is what people say they do. I kind of wish it was Victor mentioning these abilities because, like, as a dude listening to a creepy being trapped behind a door and hearing it list the possible ways it could kill you,
but
it
don't
doesn't
worry.
Don't worry. I don't do all these things, but like, people say I do.
People keep saying that I do this. Like I like murder children and starve babies and or like and like kick dogs. And don't worry. None of that's true, says the deranged man locked behind a door.
Yeah, that's sealed with blood magic.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, with warnings that say like, "Don't let this man, for the love of God, don't let this man out."
Yeah, it doesn't make me feel more willing to open the door, honestly.
Yeah, exactly.
Hearing him say that,
even if it was like a little girl, like saying that kind of stuff, I was like, "Yeah, no, you are not going. You're staying behind that door."
Yeah, like I feel like it would be more sympathetic. If like it was Victor that was saying the list, like basically Victor says like, they say you're all chaos creatures, walking virus factories, etc. And then the kid's like, no, those are lies. We're just normal like you humans. Save me.
Agree. Yeah, like I think that's definitely the route to go because it's like, yeah, like he's heard of all these things, and the voice beyond the door is just like those are all lies people have been spreading. Like, don't believe them. Blah blah blah. Like, because then it's not coming out of her mouth. Like, she's not repeating these things that other people are saying. It's somebody else who's heard those things. Like, it adds a little bit more like ambiguity as to of uncertainty. Whereas, like, when I feel like when the monster is saying like, oh, all these things, like people are saying I do all these things, and then let me list off all the atrocities I've done. None of them are true, by the way.
And how would this monster know that other people say that they do this? You know, if they don't already do it.
If they were, well, maybe, I mean, and there's like, it's like, well, yeah, because they were locked away for doing those things. But it's like, maybe they were locked away for like, because of like prejudice and stuff like that. Like that could have been it.
Yes, but that's like, what I'm saying. Like, if it wasn't any of those weird murderous abilities that they have, then someone coming up to the door saying that they did these things, they'd be like, "What? What are you talking about?" Like they would be confused. Like I've never even heard these abilities before. Like because basically if it's just prejudice, they're locked away, toss away the key, and then the bad guys in power are like, "Oh no, they have shadows that kill you. Don't go near them." Like
they're walking blights. Don't
yeah. They wouldn't know about this though because they wouldn't know about those lies because they're just locked away and no one talks to them.
Yeah. It's definitely like we said, it adds more like kind of like uncertainty if the other person if the thing locked away isn't listing what people say they done, and if it's like the other person has heard those things. Yeah.
Here's all my racial traits and special abilities.
Ignore the fact. It's like yes, I am a drow. Please ignore the fact that most of my race are chaotic evil.
Don't worry, I'm bros with Drist. It's fine.
Yeah, he's like, don't worry, I'm Drist. I'm Drist's cousin. Drast.
Drast.
Dark Drist. I mean,
wait.
Drist. Wait, he also has 2 Ds. Damn it. But it's like it's that kind of thing. Man, we are throwing so much like tabletop, like D&D, like terminology. I hope people like understand.
I mean, I wonder why we are. The whole.
It's not like we have a sister podcast called One Less Die.
Oh, I don't even mean that. I mean, just like I mentioned before, this whole series that we're reading feels like a high fantasy setting. Like,
yeah, true.
So obviously we're going to be in the high fantasy sort of headspace while reading.
I also feel like, and also like it's in the story. Even like D&D is even mentioned in the story.
That's true. That's very true
in the earlier chapters. So yeah, like I feel like someone who like M. Pratt and whatnot, like they know about Dungeons and Dragons to some degree. So
Dungeons and Dragons. There's only one now.
Dungeons and Dragons. I'm sorry for not enunciating.
You should be. You're showing your hand that you know nothing about Dungeons and Dragons now.
Yeah, it's Dungeon and Dragon. There's only one of each.
Yeah.
Dude. All right, let's continue. Let's get this done.
Well, you don't want us to razz you anymore?
No.
Okay, fine. For now. Where are we? I don't remember. 8?
Yeah, we're in chapter 8. We're in chapter 8.
Chapter 8.
Okay, yeah, that was my last part on 8.
Okay. On to chapter 9. Strigoi Mort. So I'm going to start with this one here. Actually, I'm not even going to do a full quote because it's a pretty long quote. It's basically just the like the fact that like the window was open to Victor's house or Victor's room when he was asleep, and like his door was kind of barricaded, and like the creature was trying to get in from there, but it didn't think to go through the window that was open because there was a spider web there. And I thought that was like, and then it mentions that like not just the spider, but the web itself is considered a protective symbol, and quite a common one too. Humans even weave them into their dreamcatcher talismans, and I thought that was like that's a really cool interpretation of spider webs in folk magic. I just got to say, like that they're like a protective thing. And although I'm aside from like dream catchers, I'm not sure. I wasn't really able to find a whole lot about like the significant, like the protective properties of spider webs in folk magic and stuff and folklore. So I'm not sure if it's an actual folklore thing aside from maybe dream catchers, or if M. Pratt just like kind of made up some more stuff for their stuff, like for their world setting. But then we get this.
Died.
What do you mean, Strigoi Mort? Kess asked. Do you mean vampires? Okay. So, assuming this is the same thing over all of these stories, we have Strigoi Mort. We have the Waif. We have Short Hoggers. There's the Thing. We got the Taximare. We got all these creature names, all these different like names for this thing that we've been discussing and like hearing about. That's haunting Kess. Not once is mentioned Fire Witch.
No. I mean, it might be another name for it, but who knows?
Yeah, but
Yeah, I know.
I want
It doesn't do anything fiery though.
I know, well, except in the original Last Day of October story, there was that red light that went into the person's head and assumed direct control and
Completely
basically.
unrelated.
But I think it's the same thing because we then get mentioned that character, the character that got possessed and ended up getting drained and hustified, and it was in conjunction with a bunch of other missing people that were dealing with the taxamare stuff.
What it could be is the Fire Witch is this wisp that goes around puppeting a body. That body goes around doing whatever it needs to do, whether it's face swapping, knocking on doors, doing all that shit, walk around invisibly in a cloak, fine. But when it's done with that body, the body is husked and dried out, and it goes and grabs a new body.
Yeah, no, that's what I mean.
So
but,
it could be all the same creature, yes.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But again, the comment we got from M. Pratt was, and the whole reason we're kind of covering the Last Day of October stories was because they were they delved into what a fire witch was, which was mentioned in the summer break story. And at no point in this entire series of stories have I heard or read something called a fire. The closest we got to a fire witch in the story was the captain's first mate. Who was described as a witch, as a witchy wench.
Fiery red hair.
With fiery red hair. Is that the fire witch?
Wow, she's the bad guy all along.
I'm just again, Fire Witch Watch is off. I'm done.
Is it though?
I'm done with it in this story. In this story, anyway. Yeah, I just we got so many different names for this thing from across different lands and different peoples, and not one of them is the Fire Witch. So, what was the Fire Witch in the series of stories?
And it also begs the question, what if each name is actually a different monster?
Oh my fucking god. It has all been just different. It actually been just we all thought it was one monster, but it's actually just been different dialects for the same monster. It's actually just different monsters and different coincidences and stuff like that. I don't know if that would be better or worse. If I love that or hate that, honestly. If it was all none of these monsters are connected at all. I'd hate that, I think, personally.
I mean, it shows how magical and whimsical and scary this whole freaking world is. If there's that many evil out there doing this shit,
and I mean, it did say in one of the previous stories that the Yggdrasil would have tons of horrible things that come out of it. So it could have all of these things out of it. Yeah. Yeah. But I'll move on to the next thing I have. Sometimes she would look like that long gone scullery maid squat and toad-like. Sometimes as a scrawny, ratty looking, big-eyed, thin wrapped in filthy rags. She might have looked weak and puny, but woe to the poor bastard who underestimated her. She was willing to fight back, and quite ferociously, too. Ripped apart or wounded many a grub folk, afore a silver-coated throwing axe to the throat brought her down. What? Cass stared at her incredulously. You guys finally killed the waif? Her earthly remains, at least. It really, so this kind of harkens back to what we were saying, where she just keeps getting these stories told to her and some of that. It really feels like Kes keeps getting told stories about other people kicking this thing's ass before she gets to.
Yeah, she's not allowed to.
And I mean, and in this version, we never even get to see that in this version of the story, because oh
yeah, by the way, we killed it. What?
Yeah,
we killed it off screen. Don't worry about it.
Yeah. And then we get this part here after, right afterward. The body was half decomposed, and the head was missing, perhaps smashed to pieces, or else stolen away as a trophy, or else it could have sprouted legs and crawled off. Kes remarked, remembering the scene with Norris's head in The Thing. Everyone looked at her inquiringly. I saw a moving picture play about a vampire demon thing that ate people and took on their form. She hastily explained. Oh, everyone nodded, understandably. And like honestly, I just really like this little scene of like her having to explain something from the future to a bunch of like explaining a pop culture reference from the future to a bunch of people in the past.
Not even like saying, "Oh, I saw a movie." Like straight up says a moving picture, like so they can understand it more.
And
You
not even
know?
a moving picture play. So it's like a
Yes.
like again like and then not using alien but using like vampire demon thing. Because they don't know they wouldn't know what an alien is necessarily.
She was quick on the draw for explaining that in a way that people would understand it real quick.
Yeah.
So good on her.
I did enjoy that little like that little like back and forth there. And then the next thing here I have whose notice? Said Kess. Whose notice? Said Kess, growing more confused and alarmed. And what does this curse do exactly? Am I going to end up like that hapless scullery maid in your story, all dried up and gross? Well, nothing final like that, Captain Jarvis explained. I mean, this story is a flashback, and we know that you go on vacation to Esgard and meet some strange, creepy, and interesting folks afterward, after these events. So clearly, that's not going to happen. It does kind of pull away from like the danger for Kess, because like this is all flashback, and we know that Kess ends up fine after this. But and then another thing that we get in this next quote I'm about to reference that I found really interesting about Gurdons. Like what exactly? Kess burst out. Blood, bodily organs, one of my eyeballs. Most likely a soul, replied the Sphinx impassively. Since your people have more than one, Kess snorted. Well, I'm planning on keeping all 9 of them. Thank you very much. You know, that actually makes a lot of sense that Gurdons, being a cat folk kind of race, would have 9 souls, sort of like being like the 9 lives. But it does also bring into question if a Gurdon dies, and I assume like they would like then end up with like one less soul.
One less soul.
One less guy. Here's a question, because like souls generally are like different to a degree. So like when they die once, is it a Doctor Who situation where like they regenerate and like their personality is slightly modified or slightly different from before they died? Because it's a new soul that's taking up the reins. Because like a lot of times, like souls have different like personalities. Like not like all a lot of the time, souls are individualistic. So like even like if you're a race that has 9 lives and 9 souls, are all those souls going to have the same kind of like personality traits and stuff like that, or even, are they going to be like I imagine the mind will be about the same. They'll all have the same memories and all that kind of stuff. But will they still have the same? Will the same like personality carry over?
Or does she in fact have multiple personality disorder?
Oh God, yeah. Is that a natural like thing that happens with Gurdons because they have 9 souls within them?
Mm-hmm.
That's really interesting too. Again, I like that we get little bits and pieces throughout these stories about the Gurdon. Like I'm really starting to warm up to this race of cat people. The more we learn about them.
How it all works. Like the other way it could work is like if you shoot a Gurdon, they just drop dead, and then like they're assumed dead, and then they'll just wake up.
Yeah, it's just like they wake
continue
up
on
because they have like 9. They have 9 save points.
Respawns.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, it's like it's just like they get shot. As they just like the wound heals up as the soul, a new soul like kind of takes its place. Yeah. And then my final actual thought for chapter 9. And if I'm lucky, she asked as she quickly dodged behind the captain's chair. Captain Jarvis remained unperturbed as he studied the violently shaking door. If you're unlucky, he said finally, then they're going to make you sample a bit of their cooking. And that's the last thing we read in the story. What? It ends like that? Don't get me wrong. the journey's been really interesting and even creepy at times with certain aspects of it. But where's the conclusion to Kess's confrontation?
Mhm.
She hasn't even woken up yet.
No, like she like it. The story. It just seems like the story just ends. Like there was supposed to be another chapter, but no, we don't get that. It just ends. And this story was last modified on Creepypasta.wiki November 2022. And before that, by M.M. Pratt, specifically, it was modified 2017.
Mm.
So, like...
And there is no next.
No, that's the thing. Yeah, every one of these stories has had like a previous and next for like the different like stories in the Last Day of October series. And this one's at the end.
Yeah.
So it just ends.
By now, we should have all the answers to all of our questions that we had previously from episode 1. Yeah.
Or maybe M.M. Pratt just never got around to posting the other story, like the next story, or it's now in another story that I'm going to have to search out her list of stories to see if there's one that connects, like that takes place after these events. If I want to know more about what happened to poor Kess, like Kess is about to deal with these threshold guardians to get back to Swanwick and deal with the thing at the thing at her doorstep. And then the story just fucking ends.
Yeah.
I'm just like I'm not mad. I'm just disappointed.
I wanted more.
I honestly, this is not even just like a Disney princess I must have more situation. This the story just ends with this cliffhanger that and it's like, where's the rest of the story?
Yeah, like there's so much that needs concluding. Like, does she go back to Swanwick and then wake up back in the bookstore? Like,
yeah, it's like the story just
did we get the full story of the little emerald coin lens of truth situation?
We did not. We got an explanation for we got another instance of where it helped somebody, or it latched onto somebody with Victor, Captain Jarvis's dad.
He just found it in his pocket when he was there, right?
No, he was eating cheese at one of the banquets,
right, that was the cheese
and it was inside one of the cheese, like the pieces of Stilton cheese. That he cracked on his molar, and he what the hell's this? What was this doing in my cheese? Also, it was trying to get inside his mouth. It was trying to get down his throat and choke him out.
Oh, it's still doing it. You're right. It is a murder weapon.
It is a murder. It is a murderous like gem spirit that is trying to murder people.
Wow.
But it can only, it's quantumly locked. It can only do it when it's not properly identified, or it's not properly noticed. Actually, I kind of want to do that in a game. I want to have that happen in a game where I make you guys roll a notice check or something like that, and if you fail, you don't notice this thing suddenly just go down your throat. It's all right, roll Constitution as you're choking on something that's just thrown into your mouth. I kind of like that idea actually, of just some kind of a trap or some kind of a defense thing or something like that just tries to choke out the player.
Yeah.
It just tries to choke out the character or stop them from moving forward in an instance. So, but yeah, no, this story just ends and there's so many questions, there's so many threads still that we need to follow that we never get. How does Kess deal with the Threshold Guardians? How does she get home back to Swanwick?
Do you even know what the Threshold Guardians are? We kind of got told what they do, but we've never seen them.
Yeah, they appear to be some kind of ghosts that live in the lost rooms.
Yeah.
And they're the ones that brought her through space and time to Port Bognar. So, but also here's a question: what is their relation with Captain Jarvis? Because Captain Jarvis seems to know a lot about them, and he's is the reason why he's unfazed by her sudden appearance in his tavern is because he knows about these ghosts? Like, are they do they come by periodically? Like you kind of said, like he's just nonplussed because like things like this happen all the time. Like, is he homies with these things? Like he's
He might
homies
be
with
homies.
like he's homies with these sphinxes that like are like hanging out with him.
Yeah.
I'm just yes, there's so many questions.
Will the gun be fired?
Yeah, will the gun in this iteration of the narrative be fired by Kess through that door, and what will the ramifications be? Will she have actually, and then like, will she ever wake up from the Gregory's house?
Sounds like you're the announcer or you're the narrator at the end of an episode.
Hey man, rip that announcer. By the way, he died recently from the announcer of the Dragon Ball Z show. Yeah.
Oh really?
Yeah, he passed away this last couple weeks.
No.
I know. It's like, yeah, so in honor, it's like, will Kess get back home in Swanwick and deal with the thing at the doorstep? Will she succeed in dealing with the Threshold Guardians? Will she ever wake up from the Gregory's home and get back to her vacationing home and deal with all that stuff with Dr. Ackern? Find out next time on the exciting conclusion of Last Day of October Z.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, that's my notes for that's my actual thoughts for chapter 9.
That's a hard ending.
Mikey.
Yeah, I'm just gonna parrot what you said. It's just the ending to me seems more like a parody, like and the thoughts come to Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, like, and if you're unlucky, well, then you'll get to listen to them recite their poetry.
Yeah, that's exactly what it sounds like. I was like, what? Like with the Vogan, you're gonna have to deal with the Vogan poetry session.
Yeah.
A fate worse than death.
Yeah,
Gamer, I feel like Gamer has no idea what we're referencing.
No, it's fine.
So, like that sort of thing is good if that's the sort of thing that's peppered throughout. Like this is a comedy.
Yeah,
but this doesn't seem like a comedy. And for to just end on that just is unfulfilling.
Yeah.
Well, I'm assuming like the whole cooking thing, it's not just you're just gonna have a tea party with them and have some food. Like there's some magical weirdness going on with what they serve you or something. I don't know. It's not going to be just food.
Like honestly, I honestly thought it was like, and if I'm unlucky, it's like, well, then they're going to make you a bit of their cooking. Like,
yeah.
But no, it's like they're gonna make you sample a bit of their cooking.
It's probably something to do with like if you eat it, then you're locked there forever. Like you can't ever possibly leave.
Yeah.
Or it's like some sort of mind control thing, or who knows.
Yeah.
Or turns you into one of them. Yeah. There's a million ways it can go, that none of which are good.
Well, that's the thing, because like we are still technically in the land of fairy, like in the lands of fairy, or in the multiverse of fairy. And Kess is of fairy, like she's not a human who's in the fairy world, and there is sort of a general thing where it's like, don't eat the food in fairy if you're a human, because otherwise you end up you're stuck in fairy. So it's like that doesn't affect people from fairy, unless maybe it does, because the lost rooms are something separate from fairy. So like eating food from there, like eating food from a threshold guardian will like bind you to them or something like that.
Yeah.
But we don't get any of those answers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So that's my thoughts for chapter 9.
Okay. Gamer, what do you have left?
The only thing I got left is basically in regards to the spiders, where it's brought up that the spider stops the creature from getting in the window, and then it says Kess's mouth dropped open. Wait, the thing was afraid of an ordinary spider? And then like the captain goes on explaining that it's also afraid of the web for the same reason that dream catchers exist and all that. And then Kess is like, but why spiders? I'm surprised this captain
Why?
isn't like, Kess, I just told you why.
Yeah, I just told you it's a type of natural talisman. It's fine.
Also, I was about to bring up the whole arachnophobia thing as an option, and then
Yeah.
one of the Sphinx beasts, just like of all characters, decides
Yeah,
to
the
do
Sphinx.
an actually about it,
Yeah.
which is also funny because
Ironically,
one of
sorry.
those also wears glasses too. So I'm wondering if
Oh,
that's the
you're
one that
right.
went actually and just
It's
pushed
like
its glasses up.
with its claw, like
Yeah.
actually,
Yes.
which is also ironic because Sphinxes are generally like all about like giving you riddles and not telling you like like full information.
That's a stereotype, sir.
Yeah, I'm pretty bigoted against magical creatures apparently.
Yeah, Sphinxes specifically.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's all I got for 9.
All right. On to final thoughts. I'm gonna give this a partial recommendation. And the rest of the last day of October stories, I'm going to give as a whole a very low partial recommendation. Teetering on a non-recommendation. Mainly because of this ending. Like I found the whole ride through these stories very interesting. There were some really cool, creepy, and whimsical moments and characters and like world building that we got. Again, I love the world that M. Pratt has been writing in these stories and such. But this ending is not very fulfilling for me at all.
Yeah, especially for like all the reading it takes to get there.
Yeah, like best case, it's a cliffhanger ending, and I don't know where the sequel is. and because like now I have to like it's a cliffhanger ending that now I have to search through their list of stories that they've written and see if I can find one that is see if there even is one that is a sequel to this that brings this all home, like brings the plot whole home. Like this has all been like all the world building and all the conceptualizing and like all the little nuggets of information about the world is really great. But like there was also a plot meandering through this whole thing of like Kess being stalked by this thing and having to deal with it. And that just never gets fulfilled. So like yeah, there needs to be like I really do hope that there is a story that was done up that kind of concludes that. Yeah, so like it's just the fact that it ended this way kind of
Sour
not gonna
for
say,
you.
yeah, it soured it. It almost kind of ruined it for me, even though like I liked the journey we were getting. But like as we got to the end here, I was like, how's this gonna like tie up? But like there's not a lot of pages left. There's not a lot of stuff coming yet. It's like, how's this all gonna tie up in this one chapter? And then I finished it, I was like, that's how it ends? And I was like looking down, I was like, is there another next? No, nothing's next. I was just kind of disappointed by this ending. After reading this series of stories for almost a month now. And this is the ending we get. So yeah, unless there's another story that we can read that kind of brings us all home, like I'm almost wanting to like not recommend this series. The only thing that's kind of saving it for me is the journey itself. Like I did enjoy the contents that I did read. And I do think it's worth it's worth to read for like the world that's here, but it's unfinished. Like the plot and the story itself is unfinished. So yeah, that's my recommendation and final thoughts. So Mikey, these stands for evil.
Yeah. I'm unfortunately parroting the same thing as a partial recommendation. Like I, I enjoyed the whimsical side of things, but the number one issue for the story, or even the majority of the stories that we've read, is that we keep going layers within layers within layers.
Yeah.
And there's no payoff when you finally get to the end, which we did today.
Yeah.
So
I do want
Like-
to just quickly say, like, I do like the thematic, like the story does keep true to the theme of the title, The Last Day of October, because a lot of these stories, like almost all of these events that are mentioned and are told to Kess, they always happen on the last day of October. So I do appreciate that, but yeah, like the actual like plot and stuff like that, that was being told, yeah, it's just does not come home, as it were.
Yeah. Like you get so far invested into the story, and then it just ends on a cliffhanger that we've never had to deal with before, which is, oh well, you know, if you're unlucky, you get to sample their food. Like,
Yeah, these threshold guardians are like referenced like right at the very end of the story, and then they're gone. Then the story's over.
mhm,
Yeah.
yeah. So it's that that's what I have to say.
All right. Gamer in yellow.
Yeah. Game you want a cracker because I'm a parrot too now. Because yeah, there's so many stories and there's so much like passion and like shown in all this because of like how there's like so much going on in this world, not just the one thread that we're following. We're following this one path, and then there's another path that goes over here to an entirely like a fleshed out world that's more than enough for a whole other story, but you have to go past it or just like go down a little bit of that path to get back on the main path because like a tree fell over the main path and you had to get around it and just sample the other path. That's what it kind of feels like.
Yeah.
Like you're walking through the woods and there's trees and shit happening everywhere and you're trying to stay focused on your goal, but you don't get there. Like that's the
Or
problem.
on your way there, you realize there was a landslide.
Collapse.
Or no, like you realize there's a landslide that's completely destroyed the path ahead and is unaccessible
Yeah.
to move forward. Yeah.
Yeah, and that's like the biggest problem with all this is like the world is cool, but all the stories because it's so many layers on top of layers and each layer isn't getting explained before a new layer is put on. So it's just adding all these layers of confusion and all for the payout of it being incomplete and we don't understand everything that's going on by the end. So as a overall story, I can't really recommend it because there's no payoff and you can't really get into it because of all those speed bumps that I was finding going through it of just trying to understand what's going on.
Yeah.
And a lot of the stuff that's happening in it isn't like overtly highly scary because like people have magic and weird abilities in this world. And I've talked about this before, but like because it's so high fantasy, it's hard to draw the line on what's normal and what's not. So, like, it's like that old saying I've said before many times: if the character's not scared, why should I be? And granted, Kess is scared through most of this, through all the horrible stories that she's hearing. But yeah, it's hard to get scared for something that you just hear about once in passing, and then it's gone, and you have to go on to the next story. It's like you're sitting down at a campfire listening to a whole bunch of people telling you scary stories, which in itself can be scary, but if it's like if they're all supposed to be connected and then but like you don't hear the final story that's meant to connect all of them before all of you go home and you never see each other ever again.
Yeah.
So yeah.
So you just left like but who was phone?
Yeah,
but in a
exactly.
bad way. Because you never find out who was phone.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is the anti but who was phone.
It's but
yeah.
what was coin?
Yeah. But what was monocle?
Yeah. But yeah,
also,
the world itself though, as a interesting fantasy world with all this weird stuff happening in it, that is cool.
Yeah.
But it's not like I'm tempted to say it's not creepypasta because it's like such high fantasy.
I think it's
there are
dark
dark
fantasy.
elements to it, but yeah, for sure.
Yeah, this feels more like
Um,
a dark fantasy with a little bit more like, again, whimsy and stuff like that as well. So
So to learn about a interesting, whimsical fantasy universe with all these cool creatures and unique characters and stuff, that's fun to go through. And I would partially recommend it for that aspect. But as a complete, concise story with creepy, chilly stuff happening throughout it, I can't recommend it because it doesn't give us that, unfortunately.
yeah.
Mhm.
And
Like
unfortunately, I'm gonna have to agree.
the creepiness value only kind of started dialing up towards the end with um the stuff in the attic in the hidden room
Well, again, I think
with Anne being sacrificed basically to it.
yeah, I do think a lot of the stories that we were here, they do have elements of creepiness and horror in them. That's what makes them dark fantasy, because there's it's that blend of fantastical fantasy elements mixed with some scary or some scary elements and horror aesthetics. Because we are dealing with some darker material here, and with ghosts and demons and undead creatures, that's all horror. But that's when you put that in fantasy, that creates dark fantasy. So
Yes.
yeah.
Also, we don't know if they're all the same creature or not. Still.
Oh my god! The continuity and consistency between the stories is a little frayed.
Yeah.
And it's just. I think we all kind of have come to the same conclusion, unfortunately, for the story. But yeah, so I guess barely a partial recommendation, and then ultimately maybe even a non-recommendation, as a whole. Is that the general consensus I'm getting from across the board?
Mhm.
More or less. I could see being a player in a D&D game played in this world for sure.
Yeah. I could also see if this is a long-term campaign. We get to the we're getting close to the to the end, and then the group disbands because of scheduling issues or something like that.
Yeah.
That's kind of what the feeling I'm kind of getting at the end here. And I hate that I have to that we've come this far and got to this point, because it's what we read was fun and what was cool, but the ending did not execute properly. Or it isn't finished. It just doesn't feel like it's finished. It's not even that it was poorly executed, the ending. There is no ending.
It sort of feels like watching a whole bunch of trailers for a game or something, but you never play the game.
Yeah, no, that's exactly.
You know a lot about it through all the trailers, but you don't know everything.
Yeah, and then the game. Yeah, exactly. And you're hoping the game will come out soon, so you can finish the find out the full story. But you're kind of worried that it's not going to. It's going to become like vaporware.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's giving me the same thing that when I saw that Phantom Dust trailer come out
oh my
in
God.
2013 or some shit, I'm like, yeah, Phantom Dust is coming back, and then they never do it.
Yeah.
Meanwhile, the trailer was so sick.
Is this story giving us plot blue balls? Is that what's happening right now?
Plot balls, maybe. Yeah.
Plot balls. Well, on that note, yeah. So yeah, partial recommendations, but really teetering, very close, dangerously close to a non-recommendation.
Just because of its incomplete nature.
Yeah. Hopefully, if there is another story that's out there, I will try and search for it, and I will check it out before I send it to you guys for an episode. Or if there, M. Pratt, again, if you're listening, I'm sorry that we've come to this conclusion. If there is another story that you've written, please share with us. It'd make my job a little bit easier. Make my life a little bit easier. But yeah, I think that's going to do it for this week's episode. As we close down for the last day of October with the last day of October, Short Hoggers, chapters 6 through 9. Nice. And yeah, that's it for tonight. So if you like what you heard, or if you didn't, leave us a comment in the comment section below where this gets posted. We're all on Twitter. Mikey's at the stands for evil. The Gamer in Yellow is at the Gamer in Yellow, but that's that W at the end because his name is very long. He's barely on Twitter.
I'm really not. It's also not Twitter. It's X now.
I will continue to call it Twitter to the end of my days.
Yeah.
And I'm at Review Cultist. I'm also on Blue Sky as a Review Cultist, so you can send me messages there. You can also send us emails. You can go to aldenterigamortis@gmail.com. That's ALDENTERIGAMORTIS@gmail.com. Where you can also leave us suggestions for other creepypastas, SCPs, spooky things. You creep it, we'll peep it. Yeah! And if you'd like to help support us financially, you can go to Patreon. Select the backer you'd like to support us at. We have special episodes, early access, extra content. To all our patrons helping support the show, thank you immensely. You're helping keep those hosting bills at bay. As always, we very much appreciate that. And to our listeners and the authors of these stories, thank you immensely, because without your listenership, we'd be like screaming into the void. And without these worlds that you create and write in stories and post online, we really wouldn't have much of a show because we'd have nothing to talk about. So, thank you. Until next time, I have been your host, Review Cultist.
I'm Mikey, the E stands for evil.
The Gamer in Yellow.
And this has been Al Dente Rigor Mortis. Sleep well, and happy Halloween.